across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
And good afternoon. Yes, welcome. Thank you, Julia. Welcome to the Home of Commentator. So much to get through, as you've been hearing. Two men stabbed outside a synagogue in Golders Green, North London. One man arrested following the incident. This, of course, is the latest in a series of attacks on the predominantly Jewish North London neighbourhood. We'll have full details, and we'll be speaking to one resident in a few moments. Also this afternoon, the UK population is now projected to peak much earlier than previously forecast. The Office for National Statistics estimates the peak will occur in 2054, 4 decades sooner than the prior 2019 prediction. According to most recent reports, asylum seekers, including small boat migrants, now make up 44% of net migration. And of course, this ties in with more of us Brits dying than there are being born. Where does this leave the future for the UK? What will the UK look like in the next decade? Details to come. And concerns that free speech is being threatened are still at a peak, as 1 in 5 councils have imposed bans on public swearing, shouting or using offensive language. More on that story to come too. Everything you need to know, we'll bring you all that breaking news. 0344 499 1000. You can message 87222. So Britain is at a population turning point as deaths will outnumber births for the first time this year. These are the ONS predictions, but immigration is rapidly increasing. More Brits will die than be born between now and 2034, according to the agency, and small annual population increases are expected to be solely due to immigration. Britain has entered a strange historical phase, it seems. A country kind of slowly disappearing while simultaneously becoming more crowded. It sounds impossible. It's like a pub with no beer, but somehow it's rammed to the rafters. People shouting near the fruit machine, despite no beer. The headlines tell the story plainly enough. You heard it there. Deaths now outnumber births. The native population is ageing, shrinking, and increasingly reluctant to produce children, unless, of course, you have some sort of government intervention like subsidies for nursery fees, housing deposits. Perhaps emotional resilience will reign supreme. Meanwhile, migration becomes the sole engine of population growth. This is genuinely fascinating. The country continues, biologically speaking, through importation alone. And this affects everything from so many angles. Mark Rowley is the head of the Met Police.
If I was having London today, the resources to match the population that we had sort of 12, 15 years ago, we need best part of £1 billion more. We've got all these new threats. We've got global instability. We've got communities that are more volatile.
So there it is. I mean, that's just from a policing perspective. Economically, this is both, some would say, salvation and a warning, because here's the reality, OK? This is how the story is meant to be explained. Without migration, Britain faces a mathematics, the mathematics of decline. Too many pensioners, too few workers, a tax base collapsing under the weight of triple lock promises and NHS demands. Modern Britain already resembles a welfare state being carried uphill by a Deliveroo rider on an e-bike. Migration keeps the machine breathing, it seems. Remember the words of Jim Radcliffe.
You can't have an economy with 9 million people on benefits and huge levels of immigrants coming in. I mean, the UK is being colonised. It's costing too much money.
Remember those words. That caused a bit of a hullabaloo, but much of what he said, if not all of what he said, is borne out in fact. Culturally, psychologically, something deeper happens when people realise they are no longer reproducing themselves in sufficient numbers. Not conquered, not invaded, simply opting out. Quietly and politely, the demographic equivalent of leaving a dinner party early without telling anyone. That's what we're up to us Brits. And perhaps underneath all of this, Britain has spent centuries exporting its people, language, laws, institutions across the globe. We did this forever, only now to arrive in the 21st century where we're kind of too exhausted to keep it going, indebted and atomised to replace itself. An empire that once populated continents now struggles to populate Croydon. What the hell happened? The future of Britain may be prosperous, it may be dynamic, it may be functional, but it will increasingly feel like a country living in its own kind of afterglow, economically dependent on renewal from abroad, from others, while nostalgically auctioning fragments of its past on weekends via Netflix documentaries and heritage railways. So was this a rare moment where Keir Starmer was right?
We risk becoming an island of strangers, not a nation that walks forward together.
An island of strangers. 0344 499 1000. There's two stories in there. We ain't populating. Brits are not doing it. And we have mass immigration. 2 million over the next 8 years. The numbers are huge. What is the answer? What will the UK look like over the next decade? 0344 499 1000. Lines are open on that now. We will speak to Chloe Dobbs in just a moment. Let's cross back then to what has been happening this morning. These horrific attacks in Golders Green. A man has been detained after stabbing 2 members of the public. This is a Jewish neighbourhood. Everybody knows that area well. They know what it stands for, what is happening here. Let's get a word from Moshe Geller, who's a resident in Golders Green. Moshe, good afternoon to you. And, you know, sadly, as horrendous as this is, for some unfortunate reason, we cease to be surprised any longer. I mean, how bad is that?
It's terrible. In the last 1 month, we've had at least 8 or 9 attacks over here. We've had the ambulance attack just down the road, exactly where the terrorist attack just happened. We've had quite a few arson attacks. It keeps on happening. And when I heard about this, I was shocked. 2 people got stabbed. I wasn't surprised.
We are going to try and get you back, Moshe, on a better line because we are struggling to hear what Moshe is saying there. But you saw him there live at the scene in Golders Green standing by an emergency vehicle there. One male was seen running along Golders Green Road armed with a knife and attempting to stab Jewish members of the public. This seems like something beyond horrific that is happening there. And, of course, it feeds into other random attacks, whether it's property or individual. The Jewish Neighbourhood Watch Group, Shomrim, responded immediately and detained the suspect. Police attended and deployed a taser. So we are aware that it's now under control, which does nothing, however, to alleviate the overarching headline that 2 people have been stabbed, and we're yet to establish and find out what condition those people are in. But perhaps the headline that is not going away is it's another attack on Jews in this country. And here we are, 21st century, a safe haven for Jews and others. 21st century, we are seeing this, sadly, on an all too regular basis. We'll come back to the detail on that as we have it. Chloe Dobbs is with us. Chloe, of course, a political commentator and all-round nice person who loves the sunshine, by the way, is convinced it's summer every time the sun's out.
Yeah, got the sun's out, guns out.
Yeah, it's you do know it's still like only just out of winter.
No, it's going to be like really hot on Friday. It's going to be a proper sunny day.
Yeah, no,
it's going to be over 20 degrees. It was last Friday.
We do get sunny days.
Yeah,
but
look outside.
I'm seeing blokes wearing vests and flip-flops.
Yeah, you've got to get the tan on. You can't afford a holiday in
It's April, Chloe. It's April.
No, it's amazing.
It's essentially midwinter.
It's cold when a cloud comes over, though.
Yeah, if you're walking a dog,
you have to have a jumper.
You've got a dog. You know when you walk on one side of the road and it's nice and sunny, and then you go around a corner and you're in the shade for the next 10 minutes. Yeah. It's flipping freezing. Lots to talk about here, Chloe. Let's get into some of those big stories. Of course, we are talking population. We are talking immigration. We are talking the two put together. What will the UK look like in the next decade? And we played various voices there. Even Keir Starmer talked about an island of strangers, and then bizarrely had to sort of rope out. I didn't really mean that. No, actually, I think what he said was completely reasonable. I don't think it was controversial to kind of define it in that sort of way. We had the Jim Ratcliffe comments about affordability of immigration, and we have the irredeemable reality that Brits are dying at a greater rate than they are being born. And that's a terrible... Culturally, bad for our culture. Economically, it is financial suicide for our culture. The only thing, mathematically, that props us up is immigration, apparently.
Yeah, well, I mean, one of the main reasons why politicians have over and over and over again increased immigration or kept high numbers rather than bringing them down as they have promised voters is because they are always told by economists you need immigration to grow the economy. And so that is why they have time and time again they thought, oh, maybe we'll listen to voters. Oh wait, absolutely no, we're not, because we can see that our economy isn't growing and growing. Our tax receipts aren't going to be as high if we don't bring in all of these people. I mean, the reality is that our economy does need some immigration, but what's happened
doesn't need Deliveroo drivers.
That's the thing.
It might need heart surgeons.
The issue here that you've pointed out is that it's an issue of culture, sort of a suicide of culture. I think we have to be pragmatic and accept the fact that we're not going to, with the click of the fingers, get Brits to produce a load of babies. There are definitely things we can do to incentivise it. But if we are
great TV format, though, isn't it? I mean, there is a possibility, a national campaign.
Yeah, I mean, there are countries that have tax incentives and whatnot, like Hungary, to do so, and I think we absolutely should look at that. But if we're going to have immigration, if we need that for our economy, and there will always be certain sectors where we do need some people from other countries, is that not only are we looking at what skills people are bringing, but we are looking at culture. We should choose. It's not racist to say we're going to choose to bring people here from the countries that are the most culturally compatible with ours, because what has happened is we have brought so many people over here who are completely incompatible with our culture. I think that what has happened in Golders Green today is just another story which really highlights that at the most extreme end is that we're bringing people here in some cases that despise our country and our culture and the freedom of speech and the freedom of religion that we have here. And also, I want politicians to start caring about GDP per capita. We've been told time and time again, oh, have more immigration because it will grow the economy. Yes, of course, if you put more people in the economy, it will grow it. But people, per head, people feel like they are getting poorer. And that it's not worth having GDP growth if actually each individual person is getting poorer and having a lower standard of life. Then have a smaller population and a smaller GDP if it means that each individual person is better off. The
difficulty with this, of course, is that the left-wing meerkats start going, hang on a second, what are they saying over there? What's
meerkats?
Happening?
I like
that. What are they saying? What's the problem with immigration? I've made this. I've given this example before, Chloe, and I stand by it. If the good and the great were watching some very worthy BBC 4 documentary about a group of people in South America somewhere, or the other side of the world, on a small island, who have their own culture, their own population, and it was gradually being subjugated and kind of taking over for immigration, Zach Polanski would be starting a crowdfunder for them. He would believe it was an outrage that this was happening to these people. Their culture's disappearing. We've got to save them. It's awful. When it happens on your own doorstep, he doesn't give a fig. It doesn't matter for some reason. Genuinely, I don't think we have a sense of ownership of our own culture. I don't think we even value it well enough. It's not like we haven't got plenty to go round. I mean, the history books are written, underpinned almost by the export of British culture, innovation, engineering, medicine, you name it. It's not just us, but, we are certainly up there. We'd be either City or Arsenal in the league table when it comes to, what we gave to planet Earth. And now we've somehow rolled over. It's kind of been forgotten, and we're sort of living in the slightly warm embers of that kind of past.
Yeah, it's sad, really. You've got all these brainwashed lefties who think that your culture matters unless you're white. Your future matters unless you're white. If you're white, you're at the bottom of the list, and you must just, by being born white, you must automatically be a bad person. Your culture doesn't matter, and there are plenty of people who think it would probably be a good thing if the white people were just wiped off the face of the earth. But there are, you'll find lefties who will say something along that lines, but if you switch the colours around and they said the same of black people, for example, everyone would say that that's an absolutely abhorrent racist thing to say.
Indeed. And also when we look at those numbers as well, UK population due to migration will increase by 2.2 million in the next 8 years.
That's the downgraded forecast. By the way.
Yes, indeed.
So
in the next 8 years.
If you look at this report, it almost looks like they're concerned about the fact that is so low, because that means that our population is going to peak much earlier than they thought that it would do.
Sure.
But as the point we were making, it's still a big loss of culture, and you could be concerned about GDP growth, but let's start caring about GDP per capita. Who cares if it's 2.2 million instead of whatever the higher figure it was supposed to be? 2.2 million is probably still, as I get the impression you think, probably too high.
It's quite a lot of people, isn't it? But listen, we're going to come back to that, Chloe. What will the UK look like in the next decade? 0344 499 1000. We were speaking with Moshi Geller, who's a resident in Golders Green, where 2 stabbings have taken place this morning. We were cut off just due to a bad line. We have Moshi back with us. So, Moshi, I'm glad you could rejoin us as well. There's obviously chaotic scenes there, and there's a tragedy that underpins all of this. What do you know about what took place there a couple of hours ago?
Okay, so far, the information we had, there was the terrorist was walking up Highfield Avenue. There was a Jewish guy, aged 25, ultra-Orthodox, walking down Highfield Avenue. He saw him. He was walking towards him. He stabbed him, and then he ran up Highfield Avenue, then down Golders Green Road, where he met another victim, a 55-year-old Orthodox person. He stabbed him. It looked from the videos I could see. It looked like he stabbed him 2-3 times, and then he ran down the road where Shomrim, a Jewish voluntary
police
service. They're not police.
Well, no, security.
Police.
Okay.
Security. People call them police the whole time. No, they're security.
Yep.
And they managed to put him down with police, and they managed to catch the guy straight away. He looks more Middle Eastern.
So this is, I mean, thank goodness for fast work from those guys. But we now have 2 victims here, 2 victims that will be added to a disturbing list of other Jewish victims just in recent months. Do we know? Have you heard anything? I know it's very hard to speculate, and lots of stories go around at times like this. Have you heard anything about the condition of those that were stabbed?
So far, I understand from the first victim, he's not in good condition, but he's okay, not threatening conditions.
Mm-hmm.
So I understand the second, the old guy, which is around 55, which is in very bad condition. It didn't look well, as far as I understand, from what the Hatzalah members were talking about.
Yeah. And
thank God the Hatzalah, if you remember, literally 4 weeks ago, where Hatzalah voluntary ambulances,
yes,
they were attacked 1 month ago. And thank God they managed to come on time, and they were the first ones there before even police and.
Indeed. Moshi, just give us a sense of how residents feel in your neck of the woods. I mean, Golders Green's been a proud Jewish area for absolutely decades. Is there a sense of fear on almost a day-to-day basis?
The people I see people crying. I saw people. My sister called me, and she said, "I'm petrified. I don't know what's going to happen." Everyone's worried. Like we knew something's going to happen. It was just a matter of time, because in the last 1 month we've had at least 8 attacks on the Jewish community, from arsons, from the ambulances to arsons on synagogues and on shops, and now it's gone to a terrorist attack.
Moshi, thank you for your time. Moshi Geller himself there defining this as a terrorist attack. We do understand that police will, if they need to, elevate this to that status. It's very hard and understandable why that's how you would define somebody rampaging with a knife in your neck of the woods. We will bring you updates, and we hope that the victims of this survive, and they are being treated with all the usual due care, as our emergency services would. Thankfully, due to the security in that area, it was the perpetrator, the knife man, was pinned down and caught very quickly, because that could have been a whole lot worse. This was what looks like a rampage. 2 victims, details to come, and of course we'll update you right here on Talk.
sent us a picture that made me feel so ashamed. We look like hoarders.
Chris Marshall!
Yeah, I'm actually recovering from an accident right now.
You've landed loose today, haven't you?
Yeah, don't shake the arm, Chris, too much.
You're with Danny Boyle, who's like the maddest director ever. He's got so much energy. He's like you.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is Talk, 24 minutes after 1 o'clock. I know a day has gone past, but of course we can't not mention Labour MPs being whipped to clear Keir Starmer. Some have accused Mr Starmer of complicity in a cover-up after the Prime Minister forced backbenchers to block a motion referring him, of course, to the Sleaze inquiry over that appointment of Mandelson. 15, mostly left-wing Labour MPs rebelled, voting with the Tories to refer Starmer to the Privileges Committee for misleading the Commons. Let's hear, by the way, what Kemi Badenoch had to say on this issue.
The question today, as the Speaker said, is whether this should go to the Privileges Committee, whether this House and Labour MPs really believe in full due process, whether Labour MPs have the integrity to refer the Prime Minister to the Privileges Committee, knowing what we all know and can all read in Hansard. The Ministerial Code is very clear. Ministers who mislead the House must correct the record, and I quote, at the earliest opportunity. What the Prime Minister said at the dispatch box was not correct. It's clear that full due process was not followed. If Labour MPs allow the whips to force them to block the consequences of these decisions, it will degrade not just them, but this House. The question is, what kind of people are they? Are they people who will live up to the promises they made about standards and the rules mattering, or are they people who abandon their promises to be complicit in a cover-up?
Sorry, we wanted to play you a longer clip of that, but that's the only one we can get. I thought the news at 2 was coming on for a second. I mean, I thought Kemi Badenoch played that quite well. I mean, it is an open goal if you're the leader of the opposition. It was always going to end like this as well. There were some abstainers there as well, I think, too.
Yeah, there were. So that you had 15 Labour MPs voting in favour of him going to the Privileges Committee, but you also had 53 who didn't vote at all. And some of those may be simply because they weren't available for the vote, but others will be people who are, choosing to essentially abstain from the vote. And I do really feel for the MPs, putting them in a position where on a vote like this, which is it's not a vote on a party policy that is in your manifesto and those MPs were elected on that basis. This is something completely different. It doesn't seem right to have a 3-line whip here and put those MPs in a position where they're potentially going to be kicked out of the party for simply saying, let's have integrity, let's have clarity, and let's have Starmer come tell his side of the story and put it all out there. And Starmer should, if he knows that he has done absolutely nothing wrong, he should be up for it. He should be saying, yeah, I want to go and I want to tell the truth and I want to show that I've done nothing wrong. It really stinks of someone who's clearly trying to hide something. And you had that one MP, I think her name was Emily Lewell, if I remember rightly, who said, I've got people in my constituency shouting at me saying, you're the pedo protector party. They're desperate for me to do something about this, yet I'm in a position where I'm essentially being forced to vote against Starmer going to the Privileges Committee on this, else I'm potentially going to lose my job.
Yeah. It's not gone away, though. I mean, this vote doesn't fully clear Keir Starmer, because I think the rot, it's already in there, isn't it? I mean, there was a lot of sort of fairly tricky, uncomfortable mood music around Keir Starmer, even before the Mandelson thing. This has carried on for 2-3 weeks now, and this one aspect of it, this vote that didn't go the way of the Conservatives, I don't think it really matters to the overarching story of the damage this has done to Starmer.
I mean, it's clear that he's going to go soon, regardless of this vote. But as you say, this was a bit of an open goal for the Tories to do this, because this is the kind of thing that was a little bit like a confidence vote in Starmer and maybe would have... if he'd gone to the Privileges Committee, maybe would have started the ball rolling to get the wheels in motion, get backbenchers rebelling to kick him out. I mean, that's why they did the free-line whip, because they saw this. If this doesn't go Starmer's way, that basically says that he's toast and they don't have confidence in him. So, yeah, I think that he'll be... In the next couple of weeks, he'll be out, but he's not going to go easily. He seems to be someone who needs to be pushed and shoved. Angela Rayner apparently thinks that her HMRC investigation is hopefully going to come to an end this week, after which she may be able to have her ducks in a row for a leadership bid, because that has been the one thing that has been holding her back, really.
But also, the other thing that's wrong with our democracy in many respects, because the other story today was that Keir Starmer might offer her a job in a reshuffle back in the cabinet. I'm sorry, this is not meant to be about career building, about puffing up your CV. I'll do you a favour, you can have a nice big job, because that will protect my prime ministerial career. So it's good for her, good for him. Sorry, this is our democracy. These are meant to be our leaders. It's not how it works. You do a mate a favour so that you can stay in power.
Yeah, I think one thing that's come out of this Mandelson saga is this perception that it is, jobs for the boys. Well, Angela Rayner, of course, not a boy, but you get the idea. It's jobs for your mates when it's convenient, because of course we had that revelation from Ollie Robbins when he spoke to the Foreign Affairs Committee, that they were asked to try and find a nice cushy job for Matthew Doyle as well, which again gives this idea that you're just giving people jobs when it's convenient rather than what's best for voters and the public.
What about this story? Around 1 in 5 councils, this is England and Wales, are now ban shouting or swearing. It was 1 in 20 in 2022. The restrictions are mainly imposed through public space protection orders, originally designed to tackle serious anti-social behaviour. Now, this, of course, is on one side of the kind of lens. It's sold as a curtailing of free speech. On the other side, I hate to hear people swearing in public. I loathe it with a passion. I mean, seriously. I would have a shoot-to-kill policy.
Do you never swear?
I wouldn't, by the way, Ofcom fans. There's nothing wrong with swearing. Swearing I find hilarious. It's got a context. I just think in public, you're walking down the high street. I mean, the kind of language you can hear. Quite seriously, if my nan had heard, that's not around anymore, my nan, but she'd have heard some of that language, she would, I'm confident enough to say she would have died on the spot. She would have literally just collapsed with offence. Swearing is bad. Being uncouth is... You do that try that in Singapore, Chloe.
It has different levels, okay? So if you were in one of these council areas and they've got these enforcement officers going round and eavesdropping on people's conversations, which is weird enough.
Are they really doing that?
Right. But they. I mean, we had the woman in Richmond was fined 150 quid by these enforcement officers because she poured some of her coffee down a drain.
Yeah, but that's ridiculous.
They want to hit their target.
That's ridiculous. But if somebody overhears somebody effing and jeffing,
that's what would happen. Is you'd have these people who take advantage of the role, and you and I could just be walking down the street, having a chat, not shouting at anyone else, and one of us says the S word, and suddenly you've got a tap on the shoulder and someone hands you a fine. That's what people are scared of. No one likes it when you see these fights well, I say no one likes it. Sometimes it can be quite thrilling to watch. I have to say, a bit entertaining. But nevertheless, you don't like it when you've got people screaming and shouting, antisocial behaviour, right? But then, again, it became completely normal, right? If you were on the other side of the road to me, that I shouted to say hello to you, right? Where it's not in the context of a fight or antisocial behaviour. So,
but do we?
We already have laws against antisocial behaviour that would.
But if you shouted out, "Oi, Collins," and then there was a profanity that followed, so you dropped the C-bomb or something, I mean, should you be fined for that, or are you saying that's perfectly okay?
So you're saying the shouting and swearing have to come together?
Well, I think that accelerates it, doesn't it? I think the shouting accelerates, the intent, if you like, the idea that you're not just called... I don't think anybody's saying you can't swear anymore.
Would that already come out under...
Public order of some sort?
Yeah.
It might
do you really need new rules for it? Also, the other thing in this story that annoyed me, Cornwall County Council, apparently they've banned, as part of this, they've banned hair braiding and henna tattoos on the side of the street. That's my whole childhood, getting the pretty braids.
Not on the side of the street.
Yeah.
You go to jail for that in my world. braiding on the streets.
So you'd save up your pennies
Hi,
to
Jess.
spend 15 quid on a glittery hair braid.
Yeah, I was there as well, Chloe.
For the summer holidays.
It was a phase I went through.
Yeah.
Chloe, thank you. We will speak soon. Chloe Dobbs with us here on Talk. Thank you to her. Over to you. 0344 499 1000. What will the UK look like in the next decade? We're putting two stories together here. One is the massive increase in migration. 2.2 million extra migrants will arrive in the next 8 years. I don't know why that has to happen. Governments can say it doesn't. But the downside is, if some argue, if it doesn't happen, then we're absolutely toast anyway, economically, because people are dying. Brits are dying at a faster rate than they are being born. And that is not just a quirky factoid to tell your mates at the water cooler. That is a perilous economic nightmare for the future of the country. What's the answer? 0344 499 1000.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is Talk. 0344 499 1000. A massive increase in immigration and a decrease in repopulation from what you might call indigenous Brits. We had a conversation, by the way, in the office. Some people are offended by the word indigenous, but indigenous, isn't it just a factual statement? We all know kind of what it means. I've never thought it had any kind of mood to it or suggestion. It wasn't in any way pejorative or meant to try and squeeze out another narrative, but you take the point. So we've got a bit of a cocktail of an issue here. Laurie Wastell is the associate editor at The Daily Sceptic. Laurie, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Ian. Good to be here.
And nice to have you with us. So, I mean, this genuinely is, you know, I used that phrase a second ago. It's not like a little quirky fact, is it? Oh, look, there's fewer of us having babies. And, oh, look, there's more immigration. There is genuine socioeconomic concerns about this, and they should be taken seriously.
Absolutely. I mean, I think we can put them into the economic concerns and the social concerns. I think perhaps let's start with the social ones, though. Actually, I mean, that's often more overlooked in this argument. I mean, you hear these questions about pensions and about an aging population and so on, but we should remember that. I mean, if we go back, for instance, to the start of the Blair government, we were being told at that time that, firstly, I think a national story, a national narrative rewritten to make us into this sort of multicultural nation, supposedly having always been that. And we were being told that this would, improve our culture, it would be wonderful, we'd all tolerate all these communities very well, and so on. One of the first things that really scuppered that narrative right in that era was in 2001, 25 years ago, this summer, was these awful race riots in the mill towns. So in Bradford, Oldham and Burnley. And very soon it became clear to even New Labour, who had this crusading approach to multiculturalism, that actually it really wasn't working at all. You had this arrival of this phrase, parallel lives, in the infamous Cantle report into that social cohesion problem. So that's really been going on for a very, very long time. And I mean, today we see, for instance, the government again releasing another social cohesion report with portentous language about a dangerous integration problem from no less than the Prime Minister himself. And so these problems are only getting worse, and it's something that is a lot of the time just pushed under the rug.
What is the again? There's two stories here. I'm intrigued by the fact that more of us are dying than being born. Now, is that? I mean, the obvious shorthand answer to all of that, Laurie, is, well, because it's too expensive to have kids. That would be one reason behind it. Or is there something else going on here?
Well, there are several things. Certainly, it's true that house prices are putting an immense pressure on anyone who wants to have children. And you do certainly have a situation in which it can be a lot easier if you are on benefits, perhaps, or if you're in social housing in particular, for you to have children. So there's a very unfair settlement. And it is true that if you look overall at the tax receipts, you mentioned the indigenous British there, that actually they are subsidising other groups that are coming in, and we're often told again that these will be economic benefits. And there's sort of if you take a very, very short-term argument, if you add one person into the country, then they might pay a bit of tax over a year. But the question is the fiscal impact that will have over the long term.
Yes.
And we know that many of these, especially low-skilled migrants, are not going to have a benefit on the fiscal situation over a longer period. So that's only kicking the can down the road.
Indeed, and it should be said as well, when I hear mostly left-wing politicians talk about migration is a net benefit and all the rest of it, and we can crunch those numbers in whatever way we like all day long, it should be said that if there is a benefit, it isn't because of the sort of migration status or the ethnicity of somebody. It's because it's an extra person, it's an extra human being. That's it, right?
Quite. But I think we should actually, not give too much credence to these arguments about that supposedly it's about economics. I mean, as I went back to those arguments being made in the Blair era, but that really continue to be made for a long time, and still by some on the left.
Yes.
They ideologically believe in migration because they think that diversity is our strength and so on. And then only after it gets a bit of pushback from more right-wing politicians and voices do they then say, oh, well, actually, no, it's an economic argument. That's why we need it. Supposedly we massively increased immigration in this undemocratic way for the economy. That's not really ever been true. And in particular, that's evidenced by the Boris wave we had recently, which was particularly economically disastrous, and so clearly wasn't a sort of sober economic calculation.
Well, indeed. Of course, to have that argument in any authentic way, you can't just say an economic benefit or whatever else in that sense. You've got to drill down a little more. If we're talking about brain surgeons and engineers and the very creme de la creme of the AI world, I could buy into that and understand it. I don't generally believe that's what we're talking about. People can say it all day long, but when hundreds of men every single week arrive on rubber boats across the English Channel, I don't think the aforementioned IT, AI, brain surgeon lot, that cohort, I think is probably not on the boat.
No, certainly not. I think when it comes to asylum seekers, but also, I mean, to go back to the legal immigration side of things, in that Boris wave, by some estimates, 95% or more of those individuals arriving will not ever be net tax contributors. And this is because the visa's requirements were open to such a degree that you could have people earning at about £20,000 on the low-skilled worker visa. You could have people coming in on social care and bringing in dependents, which again is a massive net cost. And you could even have students coming in on a one-year master's degree and then having a 3-year visa where they can sit around in the country and essentially use that as a visa loophole, and even in many cases claim asylum after having a student visa. So again, this is not actually targeted high-skill immigration. As you mentioned, there's not brain surgeons and so on.
Yep.
It's flooding our labour market with mass low-skilled labour, and that is certainly not benefiting the fiscal picture.
Indeed. On that point, Laurie, great to have you on again. Thank you for your time. Laurie Wastell, he's the associate editor at The Daily Skeptic. Let's speak to Paul Johnson, the economist, former director at the Institute for Fiscal Studies. Afternoon to you, Paul. Nice to have you with us. So there's a few sort of irredeemable realities on this one. Immigration is going up, and in fact, one projection suggests 2.2 million extra migrants in the next 8 years. Some are saying it could be more than that, while simultaneously procreation among Brits is going down. So we have this curious situation where a country is slowly disappearing but simultaneously becoming more crowded. The economic implications of all of this are quite interesting. Some would say, from a fiscal perspective, your perspective, it's quite fun to crunch these numbers, but there's some very serious headlines behind all of this.
There are, and as you say, there are two completely different elements to this. I think the most disturbing one is this lack of children being born. I mean, our fertility has gone down really fast, and we're not the only country where this has happened, and in a way that was completely unexpected. So no one was projecting that fertility rates would fall from something like 1.8 or 1.9 kids per woman to about 1.4. So we're massively, we'll die out over centuries if we carry on doing that. And without immigration, the population would fall really quite rapidly. But before it started to fall, it would age really rapidly, and that would be really difficult to maintain, as there are fewer and fewer people of working age to people of pension age. So I think that is a really big challenge for the country, and indeed it's a challenge for a large part of the developed world. On the immigration, I mean, immigration is not rising. Indeed, it's, as you've just heard, it's fallen a lot from the so-called Boris wave, when it got to virtually 1 million net immigrants coming in a year, which was just astonishing number. The Office of National Statistics forecasts or projections, my guess is that we'll actually get fewer immigrants than that, at least outside of the sort of small boats crossings. This government, and building what the last government did, has put quite a lot of measures in place to reduce the number of people coming in. So whilst we have had remarkably high levels of immigration over recent years, and millions more people in the country as a result of that, my guess, though, you know, I could be wrong, my guess is that the economic migration numbers will come down a bit more than is suggested by those ONS projections.
Yeah, quite possibly. And maybe people will start breeding again as well. I mean, every now and again, there are these kind of sort of tipping points which can be explained in some respects, and often they can't necessarily be explained. You know, could it just be a sort of social phase we've gone through where having babies is just not as interesting as it once was? It's not a life goal as it was. There's loads of other stuff to do out there as before, and maybe that will turn around at some point. But at the moment, the projections are, you know, more people are dying than being born.
I mean, again, the projections tend to be rubbish.
That's very true. Yes.
I mean, seriously, if you look back 50 years ago, the same people making these projections were expecting life expectancy to fall. They were expecting us to live less long. Yeah. And then life expectancy rose by something like 10 years over the next 3 decades. And of course, the people making the projections thought, well, it's going to carry on rising. And it hasn't. About 15 years ago, life expectancy stopped rising, and no one projected that. And the same is true with the birth numbers. No one projected that they would collapse, which they've done over the last 6 or 7 years. Yeah. And now the expectation, the projections are, well, they'll just stabilise where they are. Well, they might actually keep going down. My guess is that that might happen before they start to pick up again. And I don't think we really understand why, because all of the explanations I've heard for this, I mean, expensive childcare, expensive housing and so on, that's no more true now. In fact, it's less true now than it was a decade ago. Yeah. And yet the fertility rates have dropped over that decade. So I think people who say they understand why, probably not really. I mean, I just don't think we really do know what's going on. But if we don't know what's going on today, it's really hard to predict what's going to happen tomorrow.
Yeah, indeed. Listen, great to have you on, Paul. Thank you. Paul Johnson, former director at the Institute for Fiscal Studies. Why are people doing? Is it just an economic? I don't know whether people sit down and look, we'd love to start a family, we just can't afford it. I mean, that would be responsible if you can't afford it. Is it that, or do people just have bigger ideas? I think also, if you consider back decades ago, when women in the workplace were at such a smaller percentage than men in the workplace, that would have been a factor then. You could see why maybe the kind of gender roles were marked out, curious as it sounds saying it now in the 21st century, but only a couple of decades ago, that landscape looked very different to it looks today. Is it that? Career opportunities, the idea that you can do more with your life. We have a gazillion messages and images thrown into our brains on a daily basis through 24/7 TV, social media and elsewhere. So we just maybe prioritise things differently. Perhaps that'll come full circle and people just start breeding like rabbits. Who knows? Thoughts on that? What will the UK look like in the next decade, taking into account both of those stories about procreation and immigration in the UK? We are, of course, keeping our eye on that horrific story out of Golders Green. 2 people stabbed this morning. A 45-year-old man has been arrested on suspicion of attempted murder after those 2 men, one in his 70s and one in his 30s, were stabbed in Golders Green this morning. This is the Met Police telling us this now. The suspected Golders Green knifeman was tasered as he attempted to stab police officers. The Met said, adding that officers are working to establish his nationality and his background. This is grim. I think we can see at this stage, and we're safe to say this at this stage, that this looks every bit like a horrendous anti-Semitic terrorist attack. But of course, the word terrorism is always tricky when it's an individual. Is it a particular affinity with one area, thought, cause, or something else? Either way, we're left with the horrifying result of a frightened community, a proud community, after 2 people stabbed, one's in his 70s and the other in his 30s. More details to come as we get it right here on Talk.
Sent us a picture that made me feel so ashamed. We look like hoarders.
Chris Marshall!
Yeah, I'm actually recovering from an accident right now.
You've landed loose today, haven't you?
Yeah, don't shake the arm, Chris, too much.
You're with Danny Boyle, who's like the maddest director ever. He's got so much energy. He's like you.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This comes in from Kay, who says, I dread to think what Britain will look like in 10 years' time. It's changed a lot in the last 10 years, and I don't like it now. Martin says, with reference white Britons, will white Britons suffer like the red squirrel has? The grey squirrels have taken over. Yeah, I've never... Which is the one you see? Oh, you don't see a red squirrel, do you? Yeah. I mean, they're all for... Well, Finn, our producer, says not anymore, like he's got loads of memories of going out with a net catching red squirrels or something. I'm a lot older than Finn. I've never seen a red squirrel in my life. Point taken. Martin says, I won't fight for this country. Let's go to Olga, who's in Sheffield. What are you making of all of this, Olga? Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon. So my name is Olga. I'm originally from Belarus, and I was born in Minsk. What I want to say, what did work in Belarus regarding population increase?
Yeah.
So they introduced financial help, which means, help with housing, financial help if you have a baby number 3. And when they introduce this help, the population start to produce babies, basically. So it did work. So I'm just wonder if this government can apply whatever was applied in Belarus to UK, to native population. I'm not talking about to the whole population, but to a native who grandparents, grandparents are British, to help parents having babies.
So you think? Is your sense, Olga, that this is largely financial?
I think yes, it's definitely financial.
Yeah.
So I work as a nurse, in Sheffield, and lots of my colleagues saying, "Oh, I cannot have another baby because it's financially I can't afford it. I have to pay mortgage."
Sure.
And also childcare is extremely expensive in UK.
It is. It's utterly crazy. Listen, you make a good point, Olga. Thank you for that. I'm only moving on to get more comment, and I want to talk to Chris in Epsom on this story. What are we going to look like in 10 years, Chris? What have you got for us? Afternoon.
It's not going to afternoon. It's not going to take 10 years, but everybody's forgetting things. Shabana Mahmood has said lots of words, but done absolutely nothing. Now, think about the Boris wave, which we've talked about before.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in the next 12 months, 1.5 million people are going to apply, or are eligible to apply, for indefinite leave to remain. Now, that was all the conversation before Starmer kicked up with Mandelson and all the other stuff that's going on.
So these are the people that have now been here a while, and now they can put their application in.
Yeah, exactly. Now, there's 1.5 million people over the next 12 months. Now, each of those people, once they've given indefinite leave to remain, the benefit door is open, so the benefit bill goes up.
Yep.
And according to the ECHR, they're entitled to family reunification, so they can bring their wife, her husband, the kids, grandparents, whatever.
Yeah.
It's
I mean, at what point does somebody, and this is not, no one here, you, me, or anyone else, Chris, is being unfair to an individual kind of nation, or if I lived in some hellhole of a country, I'd want to come and live here. But who around the government table doesn't flag this, doesn't go, hang on a second, this will be unsustainable? Because here we are every week talking about a welfare bill that nobody can afford.
Ian. What people don't understand and they don't take on board, right? Forget the hellholes and all the rest of it, where there's fighting going on or whatever, right? There's 8 billion people in the world. 6 billion of them, right, live on $5 a day. That's housing, clothing, food, education, everything, right? Everybody wants to come here. We can't take everybody. It's time to shut the doors. We need to shut indefinitely to remain. That was talked about.
But of course, this story, if you wanted to really drill down, goes beyond just this country. Look at what's happening in Spain at the moment. I'm sure you've seen their headlines. That's largely down to a socialist government. But we're in curious times. So right across the whole continent of Europe, you could argue the same issue is applying. But we're concerned about this country. Chris, I've got to move for time. The news is upon us. Thank you again to bring you that breaking news. 45-year-old man arrested on suspicion of attempted murder after two men, one in their 70s, one in their 30s, were stabbed in Golders Green this morning. The suspected Golders Green knifeman was tasered as he attempted to stab police officers. The Met have said they are working to establish nationality. We know that this, of course, was an issue around the Golders Green area, which has been subject to more than one attack just in recent months. So we'll bring you updates on that as we go. 0344 499 1000. Lots to get through at this end. There's a bunch of questions here, but I think what will the UK look like in the next decade seems to have grabbed a lot of attention for obvious reasons. Two simultaneous stories, but they are dovetailed quite nicely. One is the increase in immigration over the next 8 years, predicted to be at around about 2.2 million in 8 years. And the other is the fact that Brits are not breeding, but they are dying at a faster rate than they're giving birth. What's the answer? This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is Talk. Yeah, welcome back to the home of common sense. An awful lot to get through here, of course, this afternoon. Responding to those stabbings in North London. Two men stabbed outside a synagogue in Golders Green. One man arrested following the incident, the latest in a series of attacks on the predominantly Jewish area of North London. Details to come and all the breaking news that are joined to it. Also this afternoon, the UK population is now projected to peak much earlier than previously forecast. The ONS, the Office for National Statistics, estimates the peak will occur in 2054, 4 decades sooner than the previous 2096 estimate. This is according to most recent data. Asylum seekers, including small boat migrants, now make up 44% of net migration. And at the same time, Brits are not procreating. What is going on? More response from you on the way. And concerns that free speech is being threatened are still at a peak, as 1 in 5 councils have imposed bans on public swearing, shouting or using offensive language. I'm kind of torn on that, really. I don't want somebody ear-wigging on my conversation. But if somebody's shouting across the road something pretty nasty and grim, is that okay? You might get a ticket. Think COVID, please, with booster rockets. Details to come on that as well. 0344 499 1000. Amanda says any attack on Jewish people in this country is an attack on all decent British people. Sadiq Khan has to stop the regular hate marches, which encourages this barbarity. It is a headline that you know in the 21st century shouldn't be really thinking we were going to get to a stage where we'd be reading out quite regularly anti-Semitic attacks in the United Kingdom in the common era. I mean, it just seems... I mean, obviously it's tragic and it's dangerous and it's disturbing, but when you take a step back, you think well, something awful has gone wrong, that we've reached this kind of pivotal moment of grave danger for Jewish people. Your brain says, well, that's part of Jewish history, doesn't happen anymore. But it does right here in the UK. 0344 499 1000. Your responses to that as well. Now, Labour MPs have accused Keir Starmer of complicity in a cover-up after the Prime Minister forced backbenchers to block a motion referring him to a sleaze inquiry over his controversial appointment of Peter Mandelson as the US ambassador. You're familiar with some of this story. 15 mostly left-wing Labour MPs rebelled, voting with the Conservatives to refer Starmer to the Privileges Committee for misleading the Commons. Let's have a listen to what Kemi Badenoch said in the House yesterday.
The question today, as the Speaker said, is whether this should go to the Privileges Committee, whether this House and Labour MPs really believe in full due process, whether Labour MPs have the integrity to refer the Prime Minister to the Privileges Committee, knowing what we all know and can all read in Hansard. The Ministerial Code is very clear. Ministers who mislead the House must correct the record, and I quote, at the earliest opportunity. What the Prime Minister said at the dispatch box was not correct. It's clear that full due process was not followed. If Labour MPs allow the whips to force them to block the consequences of these decisions, it will degrade not just them, but this House. The question is, what kind of people are they? Are they people who will live up to the promises they made about standards and the rules mattering, or are they people who abandon their promises to be complicit in a cover-up?
Is it a cover-up? Kevin Maher is a former Labour special advisor. Afternoon to you, Kevin.
How are you doing, Ian?
I'm good. I mean, I don't think, but on the wider issue of what this whole Mandelson thing or the damage it might have done to Keir Starmer, I'm not absolutely convinced, Kevin, that this would have made a great deal of difference. I mean, it would have been if he'd been found to have misled Parliament, but I think the mood music around this happening is almost enough to, if the intention is to wound the Prime Minister, then I think it's already done that. Does that make sense?
I think so. I mean, a few days ago, everybody's talking of Keir Starmer being, to use a boxing analogy, out for the count. But, he finds himself today still on his feet. He's groggy, but he's not throwing in the towel, if I can extend my boxing metaphor. Yes. To an indecent length. He's damaged, but ultimately he's still there. I think a lot of Labour MPs looked over the precipice and said, do we really want to get rid of the Prime Minister, create an absolute, turbocharge a crisis? No, we don't. And Starmer, in a sense, was right in a remark apparently he made the other day about the quiet MPs, would kind of come to his rescue, and that was true. So the 15 that voted with the Tories and the other parties to send him to the Privileges Committee are, without being too disrespectful, the usual suspects, the people that are kind of serially kind of detached.
I could have written that list before the vote came in, to be honest, Kevin, and I'm sure you could have done as well.
It included MPs like John McDonnell, who Keir Starmer withdrew the whip from voting against the government in the early part of this government's life. So it's not unexpected. But I think the big thing about the last few days is how this issue has frankly fizzled out. The evidence session at the Foreign Affairs Committee yesterday with Morgan McSweeney, Starmer's former chief executive, and with Sir Philip Barton, the former permanent secretary at the Foreign Office, there was no great revelations that came out. It wasn't a particularly showy occasion. It was probably a little bit overspun, and I suspect some of the lobby journalists, without wanted to bash the media, but certainly some of the lobby journalists got a bit carried away with themselves about all of this. Starmer wasn't going because nothing new and germane.
Well, indeed, and I was rather sort of hoping that Morgan McSweeney would sing like a canary and we'd have some kind of, incredible revelation that was,
it's interesting.
But it never, you're right, it never happened. But then another part of me thought, well, I'm not surprised, because if you remember Morgan McSweeney's resignation letter, it was very sort of, nope, this is all my fault, not the Prime Minister. So I thought he's probably going to be a little protective over Downing Street.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's so much, on these occasions, in terms of the theatre, and when there is no theatre, the thing kind of fizzles out. And there's Morgan McSweeney, who is smartly dressed, very softly spoken, with an Irish brogue, and doesn't say anything that sends this issue off into the stratosphere again. And Philip Barton very much did the same. People thought he would make some remarks about the pressure that had been put on the Foreign Office, and he didn't in the end, really. So the issue fizzled out, and I think it always was pretty much going to fizzle out. And it was very interesting at Prime Minister's questions at lunchtime. Starmer's there on his feet. Kemi Badenoch kind of going through the motions a little bit. There was a kind of an end of term kind of feel to the occasion. And at the end of it, you think, well, actually, look, if you didn't like Keir Starmer 2 weeks ago, you might still not like Keir Starmer. But I don't think there's a great lot of extra damage that's been done over this last week. I think it's very much a Westminster-centred issue. I don't think it necessarily cuts through on the doorsteps. What is going to give him a problem next week is, of course, the local elections and the Scottish and Welsh elections.
1 week today. No, 1 week tomorrow. Sorry, yes.
1 week tomorrow, and that's very much about the state of the economy and the state of. He's in that invidious position that new governments find themselves in, where the promises are made, but the delivery is not there yet. Now he may say, "Give me another 12 months, and things will look very different." But of course, we've got the international situation that's curdled and is in a very difficult position, and there's no growth in the economy, and you're not going to win elections when there's no growth in the economy. So that remains his big challenge, and if he can fix that, you never know. Tomorrow's another day. I
mean, I do tend to agree with you. The Mantle thing feels like it's fizzled a bit. I mean, I do think if you drill down, does seem to be a bit of a divide in the room between Downing Street personnel giving evidence and Foreign Office personnel giving evidence. But we could argue that forever, I guess. What is going to happen, of course, Kevin, is that we've still yet to get this tranche, whichever one it is, of files from the Met Police, which may throw up another problem for the Prime Minister.
It may well do. I mean, it may be that there's something else hidden in there. But I think unless there is something that shows that Keir Starmer was explicitly told about Peter Mandelson failing his advanced vetting, then none of the charges against Starmer, the political charges about misleading the Commons, really stack up. And I think it's embarrassing. But I do wonder about the public appetite for more and more sort of insiderish revelations about Peter Mandelson and this appointment. It feels a little bit like this week that there's been a fire break, perhaps a bit tentative. But at the moment, I think the Prime Minister and his team will think, actually, I'll get a decent night's sleep for the next
quite possibly.
It's still the elections. Yeah. But he's got the King's Speech coming up, so he gets a chance to reboot the government. in a couple of weeks' time. And that might be enough to fend off some of the backbenchers who are restive, clearly. They see the polls and they look at the results and they think, well, what does that mean for me in a couple of years' time? But we're 40% of the way through this Parliament. There's 3 years still to go.
I know.
There's a lot of time for recovery. And I think Starmer's message this week about backing him, I think it's significant that most Labour MPs were content to do that. And I suspect leadership putshes and all the rest of it, I think they've probably been a little bit overplayed at the moment.
What are you making of this story that the Prime Minister might offer Angela Rayner a cabinet post, bring her back into the fold in order to kind of ward off a potential? That's one potential problem solved. He's got a couple of others because there are other names, but can you see that happening?
It's a bit like the old Godfather thing about keep your friends close and your enemies closer. I think they've been very clear that Angela Rayner adds a dimension to the Labour brand, that she cuts through in ways that a lot of the other Labour politicians on the front bench, often a bit monochrome, don't tend to do. But she's still got this issue with HMRC and the flat that she bought. That's got to be resolved, I think, before you can credibly bring her back. You couldn't bring her back and then there's another issue and another problem. That's got to be levelled off, I think. So it may be that there is a reshuffle penny, but it might be a little bit further down the line than perhaps people expect.
Is that how we should be doing politics, though? That, somebody wants to save their job, so they offer a mate or a former mate a job themselves. I'll give you promotion if you back me. I mean, if that was in any other industry, you'd be in an HR meeting by noon.
Probably would. I mean, there's no HR department in politics. I think
there really isn't. Yeah.
That's how it works. I mean, this is raw politics. This is balancing up an offer that says, for people who may challenge me or may be a figurehead around which other people rally, can I bring them in and work with them? Keir Starmer is 62 going on 63. He's one of the oldest post-war British prime ministers. I mean, he doesn't look it. He's in good nick and all that. He's still got the legs for this. But there's a point where Keir Starmer at some stage will say, you know what, I'm not going to be doing this job in 10 years' time. I probably won't be doing it in 5 years' time. So within a reasonable window of opportunity, people who work with him stand the best chance of succeeding him. I think that's the way this thing tends to work. So just as Keir Starmer served in Jeremy Corbyn's shadow cabinet, the next leader of the Labour Party after Corbyn was always going to be somebody that had stayed there on the bridge of the ship, and that was very much Keir Starmer. And similarly here again, somebody that is prepared to work with the grain of the Starmer premiership is likely to be the person who succeeds him.
Indeed. Lovely to have you on with us again, Kevin. Nice to see you too. Kevin Marr, former Labour Special Advisor. I think he's sort of largely the Mandelson thing. I was watching the news last night and I thought, are we a bit fed up with this now? We've kind of looked at most... By the way, I don't think we should be fed up with it. And I think sometimes the focus isn't necessarily in the right place. The right place was always, what the hell was our Prime Minister doing appointing this man, etc. Did he lie to Parliament? Did he mislead Parliament? Even that will forever be debated. Those that support him say, well, actually, no, technically he didn't, never intended to. Those that... want to pursue this will say, well, I think there's enough evidence to say. So that, that's going to go round and round. I think he's massively wounded by this. And I don't think that's going to go away. So the mood music has been fully set. He can't escape this one. And it'll be round his neck for a long time. So, yeah, it is largely now feeling more like a Westminster story, what's of interest to the Westminster Village. But I don't think, having said that it's... he's completely out the fog on this one. 0344 499 1000, 2:15. Just before we go out to the phones, a reminder, of course, on what has been happening in Golders Green following those Golders Green stabbings. We know that Israel's foreign ministry said Keir Starmer's statement are no substitute for confronting the roots of anti-Semitism, and the UK government can no longer claim this is under control. So this is the Foreign Office of Israel making this point. The chief rabbi said words of condemnation are no longer sufficient and called for meaningful action following the stabbing of those two Jewish men this morning in North London. If you allow anti-Jewish marches to take place en masse on a weekly basis with signage and slogans that are about as offensive and anti-Semitic as you could possibly conjure up, you couldn't sort of satirise this in some kind of dark comedy. You simply couldn't. You couldn't turn it into a serious film. It was just, none of this would surely happen. Yeah, that's where we were. We allowed these marches to take place for reasons I don't know. People supporting a medieval death cult walking through our capital city should have been water cannoned out of their own socks. That's not... I love a democracy. I love a march, even if I disagree with it. In fact, when I disagree with it, I love a march even more, because it reminds me that I live in a democracy. It's not North Korea. People can march right next to Parliament as well. You can't even do that in America with such proximity to power. It's brilliant you can do that. But when there's a march that is just dangerous, really dangerous, I don't want to see that march. I don't see that as freedom of speech. So clear those people off the streets. We don't want them on the streets. And that mood has kind of set the scene, really, for what we're seeing now, which is anti-Semitism running rife through major parts of this country. Let's speak to Stuart in Wigan on this point. What have you got for us, Stuart? Good afternoon.
Hi, Ian. I'm getting so disgusted with this country and the so-called traitorous, terrorist sympathising leaders. Something's got to happen. I don't care what anybody says. There's a civil war coming to this country, and that they are bringing it quicker and quicker and quicker every single day. I will stand up for the Jews. I'm not Jewish. I'm Christian. But this is a Christian country. And as far as I'm concerned, you want to bring terrorism into this country, then that's fine. But personally, I've banned Islam as far as I'm concerned, with where it's going at the minute, because they're the only ones that get this democratic country that we've got, because we couldn't march. I want to know, and here's a question for Starmer, I want to know where all the anger is that two people have just been stabbed, two Jewish people have just been stabbed. Where's the anger? There isn't any. Not like there were when far right, apparent far right.
Yes, absolutely. And you will have a very kind of... I think after Southport, that was the most animated I've ever heard Keir Starmer talking about the far right and missing so many elements of this. There's nothing wrong with a Prime Minister condemning a riot and people throwing bricks at police officers' heads. I get that, but to not put some meat on the bones and to expand on concerns, not just locally around Southport, but the wider country, was just extraordinary. But I don't think I'll see him that animated over this. And we never do. And I always quote the David Baddiel book, Jews Don't Count. And that's the territory we're in. Listen, Stuart, I hear the anger. I don't think we should ban a religion. I don't know if this country functions in that way. But we have a tentacle of a religion in political Islamism that is the problem. Now, there are people who go, it's all the same stuff. No, it really is not. I promise you, it really is not. I can... tell you now that my doctor, the bloke that cuts my hair, I can keep naming people, do not agree or endorse anything that we've just been talking. And not for 1 second. Because that seemed, they're just lying to you. No, I promise you, they do not. Whether it's grooming gangs, whether it's the ICE, and they're not all under quite the same umbrella, but they fall in the, a very similar category. 0344 499 1000. This is Talk.
And they sent us a picture that made me feel so ashamed. We look like hoarders.
Chris Marshall!
Yeah, I'm actually recovering from an accident right now.
You've landed loose today, haven't you?
Yeah, don't shake the arm, Chris, too much.
You're with Danny Boyle, who's like the maddest director ever. He's got so much energy. He's like you.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is Talk. 0344 499 1000. Full updates on what is happening in Golders Green on the way. We await more from the police as well after 2 were stabbed in what is looking every bit like an anti-Semitic attack. Let's go to the calls. Shirley is in Birmingham. On that story of swearing, Shirley, what the bleep have you got for us?
Yeah, hi. I just thought you might be careful with kids. Two things. They tend to swear, but don't pick on them. And just thinking that the men from the council, do they have time and money for that? You don't want to criminalise kids.
That's true, but maybe you kind of create employment, don't you, by getting some swear police out on the streets. But maybe that's the answer.
Yeah, also with the braiding of hair, is that really a problem? And why did they raise that?
What is a bigger problem is doing your makeup on a train. Have you ever done that, Shirley?
Not myself, but I did fall asleep once, and the ticket collector woke me up to check my ticket. He must have thought I was a bit dodgy.
I thought you were going to say he woke you up putting lipstick on for you or something, or making up your face. I kind of understand why somebody might well be rushed and has to do a bit of makeup, but then I'll draw a line at the nail varnish because it stinks.
Yeah, my genuine worry is not to criminalise the kids. And also, did we not have this problem at school where, was it not, I have a memory of like a mixed race or a black boy who was picked on for having braids at school. Will that still occur with the hair braiding? What is the issue?
Well, no, I think the hair braiding was just something that Chloe, our first guest, raised herself about something she used to do in the streets.
Yeah.
Is hair braiding on the list? I don't think it's on the list, is it? The swear police for antisocial behaviour. I don't think it's on the list, Shirley.
I just wish, just stop criminalising people, because all this stuff, including, things we think should be done, like stop and search, goes onto your records. Yeah. And not just your records. Like here at Birmingham, they check you for a council tenancy, or if you want to buy. So you're going to have problems. Do you know what I mean? I'm just concerned with unnecessarily criminalising.
I get that. Yes, we don't want to live in that world. I understand that. Listen, Shirley, it's a great call, and thank you. It takes you into that kind of interesting when people say, well, in Singapore, wasn't there a British guy who got a bit drunk and walked down the streets in Singapore, and he either kicked the wing mirror off a car or he graffitied a car or something of that nature. It was the kind of thing that certainly wouldn't get the police out over here. And it was something like either went to jail for 5 years or something, or he was taken down to the police station and given about 50 lashes, because you definitely wouldn't do that again. And when you read those stories, we all go, yeah, it's about right, do that. But then you sort of have to really balance that. Do you want to live in a world where, because I would love there to be crimes of idiocy, where we actually have a list of idiotic things that your fellow humans do. Like if you park over 2 parking bays, for example, that should be 30 years in jail, surely. There's nothing more annoying when there's only 1 parking space left and 3/4 of it have been taken over by somebody parking in 2 of them. That kind of stuff. You know the thing. In car parks, by the way, use indicators. You are still on the road and still trying to inform other drivers. All this sort of stuff. Roundabout etiquette. I mean, a lot of it is car-based, but we talked about people putting makeup on trains as well. Where do you sit on that, Finn? Are you offended by that, seeing someone put makeup on a train? Finn has just told me in my ear, Finn's our producer, he hates it. It is quite a bit. Sometimes people whip out a bit of lippy with one of those mirror things on. That's fine, doing a bit of that, just checking the old, that. But when somebody opens up the bag and all the components are out, it's like, you having an Avon party, love? What's going on over there on your desk? But when the nail varnish comes out, you might as well just open methylated spirits. That stuff honks. That should be a criminal offence, and that should be 17 years in jail for make-up crimes. We've all got our little list, haven't we, of stuff that royally riles us. And that's one of them. Dave's in Blackpool. Back to Keir Starmer. Dave, what have you got for us? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, young fella. Good to speak with you again.
You too. Far away.
I'm just going to give you a quick scenario, if I can. If all these Labour MPs that voted last night was asked the day before, how would you deal with a bully? The most common thing is they would say, stand up to them. Just as I was leaving this morning at 7 o'clock, I heard the news, and a lot of Labour MPs were saying they were bullied, they was intimidated, they all folded.
Yeah.
Every single one. Yet you would have got outside the day before, asked them, and they said it. We felt bullied, we felt intimidated, but we haven't got a vote up here.
Yeah.
For the next general election, I'm going to have a tin of yellow paint. If a Labour MP comes to my door, I'm going to ask him to turn round, and I'm going to paint a yellow stripe all the way down his back. That is what they are. They are total cowards.
The cowards on the left. Is that, do you think if you had to list, the biggest problems in our life at the moment, do you think that all routes lead back to left-wing cowards?
Of course, yeah.
Okay.
But we've had this horrible incident today. Where are they?
Yep.
Where are they? And it happens time and time and time again. I agree with your last but one caller. An attack on a Jew is an attack on every religion.
I would agree. And we have a great history and a proud history and a social cohesion with Jews in this country. It is such a small minority as well. When you look at the actual numbers, 1% or something, so tiny in that respect. Listen, Dave, thank you very much indeed for that. This in from me, who says, Ian, Singapore has pretty much zero crime, harsh punishments and zero tolerance works. It breeds respect for others and your surroundings. And that is true, and that kind of just, it sort of divides us a little bit, or divides yourself a little bit, because you think, yeah, you could have that, but then you'd be living with an authoritarian government who can, if they can do that, they can do loads of other stuff. And we work on the basis that we allow people to make up their own minds, and we trust that humans will be dignified and sensible and won't break laws and criminality. But time and time again, we see it happening. And I think the antisocial stuff is far more telling of what kind of society we are, as distinct from the serious stuff. You're never going to stop. There's certain things you'll never, ever stop as long as there's a human race. You won't stop murder. You won't stop somebody from carrying out an act of vandalism. You won't stop racism, for example. All these crimes will always be there. What you hope is that as we move through the years, there is just less of it. Some of it there will be, some of it there won't be. But antisocial behaviour, that stuff, when folk do things that there is often not even any gain to them in doing, and they've done it because they want to, that kind of group, I think that's an area, another area for perhaps a whole other discussion. 0344 499 1000. Lots more to get through. Just gone 2:30. This is Talk.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is Talk. So we've been talking about, well, it's kind of morphed into a bit of antisocial behaviour, but it comes from this story that 1 in 5 councils in England now ban shouting or swearing. That, I don't know, is there a special squad? Is it the same? Is it the litter people? You know, the people that go, you dropped that litter, mate. You dropped it. No, I didn't. I really didn't. Yeah, you did. And then they fine you 20 quid or something. I keep getting told that you can just walk away from that and nothing happens. I don't know what the reality is. Anyway, shouting, swearing. 1 in 5 councils. It was 1 in 20 just 4 years ago. So more and more councils are up for this. A survey of nearly 300 reveals 20.3% have introduced public bans on swearing, offensive language and shouting. The bans can carry fines of up to 1,000 quid. I was about to say something to that, but I might get fined if I do. If you breach and seem to threaten free speech. Let's speak with Matthew Torbett, of course, who's Senior Fellow at the Centre for Social Justice. Good afternoon, Matthew.
Afternoon.
Nice to see you. So listen, I don't like uncouth behaviour. You know, I think I kind of, you know, when you hear certain things said quite public. I was on a train recently. There was I suppose, teenagers having a chat, 3 girls, and quite loudly. The language was pretty appalling. They were quite posh girls as well, if that's the right phrase. And I thought, do I stand, you know, little Mabel, who's 87, is sitting over there, and there's some old grandad discombobulating in the corner, quivering like a whippet at the mere idea of these youngsters swearing like this. So I get that. I don't like that, but I also don't like the idea that my government is appointing people, my local government is appointing people to go out and snoop on those whose language is a bit salty. So I'm divided here.
Yeah, no, listen, I'm a hypocrite because I love swearing. I think it's great. Not in an anarchist sort of type of view, but there are some that think it's lazy if you cannot articulate your point without swearing. I go the other way. I think actually swearing is an amazing way to put forward your views sometimes. Yeah.
I think that is backed up, by the way, by Stephen Fry, and I only mention that because you'd imagine, you know, Stephen Fry, the kind of friend of the king, and a man who might have the other view, but he thinks swearing is actually really quite good and healthy.
Definitely. And I think actually, I'm sure there's studies that show with regards to like stress, letting it out in that way can have that tiny little impact on your brain. You're right. I think there is a decorum aspect, and I think there's probably a time and a place. If I'm on the way to the football on the train and you're on there with other people, if there's kids around, probably not the wisest thing.
That's a good point. Remind us of your team.
Stockport, big Stockport fan.
Still going?
So if I'm, we're doing all right, sneaking the playoffs on final day, we'll be all right. So I think it's but the big wider issue I have is this is already covered. You know, you have breach of the peace. If nobody's saying anybody in a council building shouldn't be, having abusive behaviour and swearing at them. I've never liked public space protection orders because it gives the council too much power to deal with issues, to push issues down the line. So they're pretending to do something about antisocial behaviour that should be covered by the police. What they used to do with these in Stockport, and I will name the council way back when, is they used to use them to move homeless people on. So they said, right, public space protection order in the whole of the town centre, no one is allowed to sit on the floor, which is obviously primarily going after people homeless that are begging. So rather than deal with the issue of homelessness, they just go, no, don't be here, go away. So I have huge issues with public space protection orders and the overreach that can cause.
Yeah. It's interesting you mentioned football matches. I hadn't really thought of that before, but if ever you want to see a sort of a territory, a place where you hear a lot of... When I took my then 10-year-old to his first football match, which was West Ham City, and he's a City fan, and so he's 10. This is about three years ago, whatever, nearly 3 years ago. But a friend of the family are season ticket holders at West Ham, so we're going to be sitting in the West Ham end. And he's a City fan. I'm a Chelsea fan, so I was kind of neutral to this.
Bold.
But I sort of explained, he said, can I wear my City top? I went, no, you really can't. You really can't, because we're going to be sitting, like, right in the thick of it.
Yes.
And I had said to him, this also happened with an ex-girlfriend who was an American and quite religious, and she said, "Oh, I've been to ball games and I understand the..."
You don't know what you're letting yourself in
You're
for.
about to sit in the Matthew Harding end at Stamford Bridge, love. I promise you, you will not have heard anything like you're about to hear. Anyway, so my little boy sat there, and I did sort of forewarn him. I didn't expect it to be quite as animated as it was. It was well over the top. I mean, you know, obviously these are with the die-hard, you know, it's West Ham fans who've been season tickets for like 50 years. These were the absolute coalface of hammerdom. And of course, if the ref makes a decision, you know, we've all got confirmation bias on that one.
Yes.
Their views were known very quickly.
So it depends on the situation. If you're, say, on the train or you're on the way to the football or you're in the pub or whatever, and there are people there that clearly aren't attending the football, I would try and reserve the swearing for somewhere else, because they're not really part of it. I think, certainly with my nephew, he's 10 now, and he's been going to football with me and my brother since he's probably about 5 years old. You know they're going to be doing it in the football ground. So it's just that thing, if he picks up on it, that's something adults do. But it's going to happen. You sort of can pre-warn for it, but I think it's sort of acceptable in the football ground, personally.
It's also, and when used to great effect, I sometimes, if I've been to a comedy club and you'll see a comedian who throws out, you know, an obvious swear, the F word is the obvious one, on a regular basis, but for all the wrong reasons. It's like, if I keep saying this, I look like I'm a bit cool.
Yes.
Even though I'm 55, I'm still kind of wearing jeans and a white T-shirt as if I'm still a student. That, you know, that look. There's a lot of those guys in comedy clubs. But nonetheless, but when it's used to great effect, it is the funniest thing. And I like that. So I want to... swearing can be so funny.
But you know what? You can do it, especially if you're doing the comedian thing and insulting. Loads of words that aren't swear words that I think are sometimes better. If I was to say what you're being a Herbert for, or a weapon, or, you know, I think Muppet probably is just about there, or you're a dozy sod, or this sort of stuff. There's lots of words that are almost a little bit more colloquial and you can get away with. But if you deliver it in that way, that sort of... overemphasise it, they're funnier actually sometimes than maybe something a little bit lazier that's harsher sounding.
We've done this on air before when we had sort of different setup, but we certainly did it to quite good use on a podcast. Me and a mate used to do a podcast, and we used to deliberately bleep our swear words, even if there wasn't actually a swear word there, because we'd use some funny sound effects like a cuckoo, you know. Oh, you stupid boop. It was just funnier, and whack, just weird, like honk, with sort of odd sound effects, and it would sound much funnier when you edited it down. So if there wasn't a swear word there, we'd just sort of add one in as if there was.
Because you're allowing people's imagination to put which one they think it is, which is quite nice, actually. So, I don't mind that.
We were asking, based on all of this, Matthew, we were asking about, you know, because I've always been slightly annoyed that we don't have a basic crime of idiocy in this country, and that can apply across the board.
3/4 of the country being in prison.
Well, there is that, and we'd probably all be doing...
included, probably.
I was going to say, we'd all be doing a couple of weeks at least, wouldn't we? We've all gone down that grim path of forgetting, you know, what you're doing and, you know, walking with your phone. You know, we've all... The stuff that annoys us, we've all probably done at one point. This from Paul in 5 says, shouting and swearing in public if you are disturbing people or causing fear and alarm has always been a crime. It's called breach of the peace. Do councils and police not talk to each other, says Paul. One here from Lone who says, if they banned all face coverings, half these people in these marches wouldn't turn up because they can be identified. That's a good point. The shopper in front of me, says Simon, not putting the divider thing on the shopping moving belt in the supermarket to show where their shopping ends. This should be a hanging offence, says Simon. I kind of do get that. It's just polite, isn't it, to put that little divider down?
It's common sense. It's normal. I think the one that does me, and it's maybe more London-centric, I don't live in London, and it's always blokes, by the way, take your bag off when you're on the tube rather than taking up more space than having a big rucksack on a cram tube and you're turning around knocking everyone's stuff out of the way. And you know what? There was a fella on my way to get the train this morning, stood paying for something in the shop at the train station while speaking to somebody on the speaker.
Oh, no, that's
rather than going, just give me 2 minutes, mate.
No.
And I said to the woman, morning, how are you? And she said, well, I just can't believe somebody's just been doing that in front of me. I said, well, I thought that. And I wanted to moan about the youth of today. He's about my age. He was in his 30s. I thought, come on, get a grip of yourself, lad.
That is outrageous. You're right about the big rucksack thing. Now, I would extend this. I mean, Finn, our producer, He's got a reasonable rucksack, okay, but every now and again, there's nothing too intrusive. But once in a while, you get, I don't know what they've got in that thing. It's a rucksack so big, I would charge you twice the journey. I mean, if I went to go on the tube and Finn was on my back, I couldn't get away. No, you don't understand. He's on my back.
It makes you.
Sorry, mate. You need another ticket. No, he's on my back. Yeah. Like that bloke's rucksack is on his back. It's the same size.
Just hold it in your hand. That's you're on the train. What, 10 minutes? Come on.
Yeah. John says makeup. We were talking about people putting their women putting their makeup on trains. That's nothing. On a train to Leeds, there was someone cutting their toenails.
Oh God.
And then with them firing across the carriage. That should carry the death penalty. That's a good point. One from Becca, who says, after my shopping experience today, people on mobility scooters riding around a supermarket like it's a Grand Prix track, yapping on their phones, should definitely face 10 years in jail. That's a good point as well, because there is always the thing with mobility scooters. If you need a mobility scooter, that's great. What a great world we live in that some supermarkets supply them. If you don't really need one, you're just a little bit tubby.
There's that. I will reserve my judgment. The concerning thing, though, is we saw reports in the papers, was it last month, that they want to increase the speed of them, and there are people where I think, Christ, you're going to need a licence for that, the way you're careering round the either the supermarket or the pavements. Yeah. The makeup thing, I think, look, it's hard being a woman. You get judged in society. If you're not harming anybody, you're putting your makeup on the bus, the tube, the train. I don't mind that. Toenails... Who said that's all right? Where's that come from?
At no point can it be okay to do. I mean, even the choreography of you doing it.
I think I wouldn't even like the fingernails. I think you do that at home, but toenails altogether.
Yeah, because you've got to literally sort of like yogic style pull your leg up to do it. So,
and for you to be doing them, they must be in a bit of a state as it is. Yeah. So therefore, I don't need that when I've just had breakfast.
So it involves taking your socks off as well?
Probably, unless you've got... But even then, I don't need to be seeing it, Keep your feet to yourself.
Well, you say probably. I think you do have to take your socks off.
No, if you've got somebody with flip-flops on or something, there's
I thought you meant...
Oh, no, not through the shoe, no. I mean, that'd be quite impressive.
Cut them with your socks on. It's like, wow, that's very hygienic. That is consideration, mate. I'm going to cut my toenails, but I'm leaving my socks on. So as long as you know where your nails are, because you might cut your flipping toes off. Yes, it's interesting. So maybe we need a kind of... I would far rather support additional local authority police force that dealt with crimes of idiocy over somebody who happens to drop the F-bomb because they've come out the pub and tripped over a paving slab.
A Magna Carta of brains and hygiene, potentially, of what we maybe need a code of conduct for certain things that we should or shouldn't be doing.
Well, we used to do a feature called Random Acts of Irrational Annoyance, which is exactly that, because we all have those moments where you think, why is somebody doing that? Why do you think that's okay?
You know the one in London that'll do everybody? Go on. And it's done me, which is why I had to move out. You start becoming one of them. People walking slow in front of you. You become one of them that rushes round London and everything's got to be rapid. And I used to think, I can't believe I'm getting like this. Why am I rushing to get to work? I hate going to work like most people. I don't want to get there any quicker, yet this is what I'm now doing. People that walk slowly seems to be a lot of people's bugbears.
People walk slowly, people who walk 3 or 4-fold slowly. That's like 4 times the problem you've just established there. There's there's so many of those kind of street crime things. The eating. What about the eating on public transport? Because that's a bit tricky, isn't it? Depends what you're eating.
Yes, and I have been guilty of this, but I wouldn't do it with anything smelly. I think that's the real... If I've nicked a quick sausage roll from Greg's and I've maybe not eaten, that's why I'm a little bit more lenient. I think maybe they're not eating today, they've had a busy day. Sausage roll, sarnie, depending what's on it. If you've got cheese and onion and tuna mayo, probably want to eat that before you get on, really.
But then you see somebody goes out, they have a few pints and they're on the way home and they think, I'm so hungry, I'm going to... Look, there's a Burger King or a kebab, everybody's done that one. Here's one that's just occurred to me, because I saw somebody mention this for probably the gazillionth time on social media. If somebody gets on a train with a dog, should the dog be allowed to sit on the seat?
As someone that does this, yes, but they've got to be clean as can be for a dog, really.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it?
My two are, because of my missus, really, I probably won't bother, but they're regularly groomed every couple of weeks, so
Yes, but they don't have toilet paper, do they? I mean, no matter how well you might
They
groom
look
that
after that
beast.
themselves. I'm not going to go into the
they do indeed, but you know, some of those dogs are big. You know, you get some of those.
That's why I feel all right about it. I've got a miniature sausage and a sort of. What is she? She's a sausage crossed with a Belgian Shepherd. So they're small dogs.
That's just a massive sausage, isn't it?
It's a bigger than normal sausage, yes, but it's still only a small dog. So I think that's why I'm like, well, I know they're clean-ish, and I know they'll be well behaved, and they're not taking up too much space. And is it worse if you've got the dog, especially when I've seen it on trains, they're a big dobber of a dog, and they're laying the gangway, and you can't actually get past them. So I don't know whether it's better or worse to have them tucked in on the seat or sat in front of the seat rather than the gangway.
Well, I saw somebody once with a greyhound on a train that was... I reckon if the greyhound had stood up, it was taller than most people. So I think that greyhound should have been made to sit like a human.
I mean, that I'd pay to see.
That would have been interesting. But then you get somebody who's got one of those kind of sort of bulldoggy thing. You know, they get on the train and they sit there and then they're doing their dog stuff. They've got testicles like sandbags and they're sitting there while you're trying to enjoy your morning coffee. You think, I don't know if I want to see that.
I might stand in the gangway, actually. I'll leave that one. You don't know what's going to happen.
Yes, but it does annoy lots of people with dogs on
fine.
seats.
And
then humans put their feet on seats as well.
That's worse for me because you know the feet aren't clean. Obviously, you've been walking around all day. I think actually if the train was rammed, I'd move the dog onto my lap, and therefore it's just for a comfort for the dog because we spoil them and it's bad, really.
The way round that would be, and maybe this is a Dragon's Den thing, I'm sure it's been thought about, it would be dog trousers.
Yeah, or we have a bag. As if
you put the dog in a bag.
Yes, so it's a special sort
I see, one of those things.
Yes, so you put the dog in the bag, the dog will sit on the table or on me or on the seat, and that way you're not dirty in the seat either. So there's that as well. There are ways around it.
Don't you think it's great, Matthew, we've managed to keep up the intellectual temperature of the big current affairs stories of the day?
I feel you could do this for another hour.
I promise you, if I open the phone lines on this subject now, we would be rammed for about 24 hours.
It's like
with random acts of irrational annoyance, stuff that really bugs the life out of you. There's a lot to talk about. Well, we started with swearing, we finished with dogs on trains. That's no bad way to spend a few minutes of an afternoon, Matthew. Good to see you again. You too. Matthew Talbot with us on the programme, Senior Fellow at the Centre for Social Justice. Back to you. A brand new Voice of Doom is on the way. 0344 499 1000.
Sent us a picture that made me feel so ashamed. We look like hoarders.
Chris Marshall!
Yeah, I'm actually recovering from an accident right now.
You've landed loose today, haven't you?
Yeah, don't shake the arm, Chris, too much.
You're with Danny Boyle, who's like the maddest director ever. He's got so much energy. He's like you.
Across across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk. We are going to talk about the King, his trip to the United States in just a couple of moments. Quickly, we've got the Voice of Doom, Day 1. It's a brand new voice. For those who don't know, this is a mystery voice bit, so we're not reinventing the wheel on this one, but it's political, so it's a politician you're looking for, young, old, left-wing, right-wing, dead or alive. It's a very simple question. Who is this?
We'll give hope.
Oh, that's tricky. I mean, that's brutal. Let's hear it again.
We'll give hope.
If you think you know, only way to get in touch is this way, 87222, 87222, if you know who this is.
We'll give hope.
If we get a right answer, we'll tell you after the news at 3 o'clock. If not, it rolls over to tomorrow. One more time.
We'll give hope.
87222. Now, the King has delivered some hard truths to Congress. Charles's historic speech has urged the US to support NATO, Ukraine and defend our forces, while acknowledging sexual assault victims and all sorts of other areas that he went with us. Let's speak with Niall Gardner, foreign policy analyst, former aide to Margaret Thatcher. Good afternoon to you, Niall.
Yes, good afternoon. Great to see you.
Nice to have you with us. Firstly, I'm going to say this because every time I see the King out in public, I don't think anybody wears a suit so beautifully as our King. He is about the most immaculate dressed man, considering he's not like a cool guy in the normal sense. He just looks great. And when he stood there in Congress, I thought the whole scene of the thing, if you look at the kind of aesthetics of it, were incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the whole state visit so far has been absolutely tremendous. The speech by the King was very good. I was at the White House yesterday morning for the arrival ceremony of the King, and that was a magnificent event, actually. So I think the King's been outstandingly good representing the British people here in the United States, and the American public, I think, are warming to the King. And the British monarchy, of course, is very popular among the American people who really admire the British monarchy. So I think the King has been absolutely tremendous so far.
It was obviously when speeches like this are made, they go through a few processes before they come out of the mouths of a senior royal, in this case the King. What would have happened there, Niall? Would Keir Starmer have seen that speech before the King gave it?
Yeah, I mean, certainly, Downing Street will have played a key role in terms of the final draft of it, and they would have scrubbed anything that they did not approve of, in the speech. Now, having said that, I do think overall the speech was very good, and it was an emphatic, I think, celebration of the US-UK special relationship. Unfortunately, we have a Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, who's done all he can to blow it up. And so the King's been, sheer class here in Washington, whereas, Keir Starmer has been an absolute amateur as And so there's a huge contrast, and there's a lot to be said for the King, who really has tremendous gravitas about him, whereas Keir Starmer is viewed in Washington, D.C. as a complete lightweight.
Yeah, indeed, and it kind of rather exposed the, not just the ineptitude, but almost the fear that our current leader certainly has in terms of just telling something like it is. I mean, the King managed to do this by making some pretty fundamental points, but in the most sort of eloquent and beautiful way. Nobody would be offended by it. People listen to it. There might be some who didn't agree with everything he said, but he just did it brilliantly.
Yeah, he did. It was also actually, I thought, was a very well-written speech, but it's very humorous, and there are some funny moments. And, if you look at the reaction of members of Congress, absolutely, stunning. Something like 12 standing ovations. Even the Democrats who have been involved in the No Kings movement in the United States were standing up, applauding, and almost cheering the King. So I haven't seen anybody unite Congress like this in many, many decades. The King managed to do this. It's an incredibly difficult thing to do, but the King came away from his speech at Congress emerging as a very, very popular figure in Washington, and that's a big achievement when you have all these lefty, members of Congress actually practically cheering for the most powerful king in the world. And that was extraordinary.
I thought it was extraordinary. I thought it was rather interesting after the speech when he did a little sort of walk around with some of the members. And that American thing where, you know, they want to press the flesh and then give you a massive pat on the back. The amount of times I saw somebody go in for the pat and then realised, oh, no, I can't do this. It'll just be all shades of wrong, and withdrew at that last moment. But it was, as you rightly say, Niall, I mean, it was beautifully executed. And in many respects, here's our king doing the job of our Prime Minister.
Yeah,
because Keir Starmer should be the man creating this kind of ambience and mood music.
Yeah, precisely. I mean, the king's a real leader, and you know, Keir Starmer is just an absolute amateur. Even, I mean, he's viewed by many figures in the White House as an absolute joke, Keir Starmer, actually. I haven't heard a good word said about the British Prime Minister in months and months, frankly.
Niall, it's a great analysis. Thank you very much indeed for your time. There he is live in the States. Niall Gardner, foreign policy analyst and former aide to Margaret Thatcher. Thank you to him, and he's bang on. I mean, the King did a blinding job there, but you rather think, shouldn't quite a lot of that have fallen already to our own Prime Minister? He's gone the other way. He's in reverse gear when it comes to special relationships. 0344 499 1000. Paul says people putting their feet on trains in public. Yes. Absolutely right. Terrible behaviour. We've got the voice of doom as well. Who is this?
We'll give hope.
87222, if you think you know.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With permission, I'd like to provide the House with information that I now have about the appointment of Peter Mandelson as our ambassador to the United States. But, Mr. Speaker, before I go into the details, I want to be very clear with this House that while this statement will focus on the process surrounding Peter Mandelson's vetting and appointment, at the heart of this, there is also a judgment I made that was wrong.
The name had been submitted to the King as Minister's recommendation. The Prime Minister had made an announcement that Mandelson was his nominee without caveats. The British government had sought agrément, the formal diplomatic process for a host government accepting a nominee from the US government, and that had been obtained before I arrived in post. A position taken from the Cabinet Office was that there was no need to vet Mandelson.
Mr. Speaker, I know many members across the House will find these facts to be incredible. To that, I can only say they are right. It beggars belief that throughout the whole timeline of events, officials in the Foreign Office saw fit to withhold this information from the most senior ministers in our system in government.
This was not due process. Everyone knows the price of misleading the House. Will the Prime Minister finally take responsibility and go?
Mr. Speaker, let's be absolutely clear. Before Mandelson took up his post, UKSB recommended with red flags that clearance should be denied, and there was high concern that was not brought to my attention or the attention of the Foreign Secretary at the time or subsequently is a very serious error of judgment. She rushed to judgment as she always did, just like the Iran war. Mr. Speaker, I was elected by the British people because they let the country down for 14 long years.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
And good afternoon. We have, in the last section, unapologetically tried to throw in a little bit of light when the agenda, the news agenda, is pretty dark right now. 2 men stabbed outside a synagogue in Golders Green. 1 man arrested following the incident, the latest in a series of attacks on the predominantly Jewish North London neighbourhood. This is building. What is the political reaction so far? Hearing not very much from Downing Street. I'd like to think our Prime Minister will get animated on this, but don't hold your breath. Something we're majoring on as well this afternoon. What will the UK look like in the next decade? This comes as we reveal that the UK population is projected to peak earlier than previously thought. It will occur in 2054, 4 decades sooner than the previous estimate. And boy, is it going to peak, according to new data. This means that migration becomes crucial. Otherwise, we won't have enough people to work. Because guess what? The other part of this story is that Brits are not procreating. We are dying at a faster rate than we are producing children. Sounds like a quirky factoid for a pub quiz, but the socioeconomics of it are absolutely vast. More stories and more response from you on that one. And concerns that free speech is being threatened are still at a peak, as 1 in 5 councils has imposed bans on swearing, shouting or using offensive language in public. And as many of you have already pointed out, there is also, a breach of the peace rules already in place. Why do we need another one? But it has rather taken us down a perhaps unsurprising, very welcome journey of random acts of rational annoyance, things your fellow humans do in public that absolutely sends your brain into a 360 spin. You know the kind of stuff. Social faux pas on booster rockets. Lines are open, 0344 499 1000. We'll come back to more of your comments shortly. Now, 2 Jewish men stabbed in Golders Green, North London. Police say counter-terror officers are now leading the investigation. That, of course, is quite telling. The one thing we all know, of course, is that this is not, sadly, and every time I even utter these words, it is not any longer surprising when we hear of what are clear, demonstrable anti-Semitic attacks. And to deliver that line in the 21st century is something I never thought that I would be doing. But week in, week out, we're hearing more of this. Alex Hearn is with us, Director of Labour Against Anti-Semitism. Alex, nice to have you with us. And just to pick up on the point that I just raised there, I mean, what the heck is going on in this world? Here we are, 21st century, the United Kingdom. Jews have a backstory that will tell all and every history book ever written about the plight of what has happened to Jewish people over the years. But I didn't think any of it would still be relevant in 2026. But it is.
It's extraordinary. Thanks for having me on. It feels like there's a war on British Jews and also on British values. We are struggling to recognise the tolerant country we used to know. And we've had enough of the platitudes from politicians without the political will to act. Britain needs to put itself into special measures.
Yeah.
As you rightly pointed out, we're living on a continent with the kind of remnants of a Jewish community. There are less Jews in Europe, and that includes the UK, than there are Muslims living in London. Now, that doesn't tell us anything about Muslims. It tells us about what happened to Jews on this continent. And it just seems like, well, this incident follows a spike in anti-Jewish hate crime, lasting years, a years-long spike, and more recently a string of arson attacks, terrorizing the Jewish community. And one of the synagogue arsonists was released on bail with a lesser charge after claiming he didn't know the building with Hebrew on it, which he threw a firebomb through the window of, was a synagogue.
Right.
So there's these kind of massive institutional failures by the government, the police, the CPS. And then there's the everyday racism that leads to this kind of thing, which empowers people as well. The slurs, the what some people call Jew tests, which I call purity tests, online and offline, and racist placards and hateful chants and insightful speeches. And there seems to be a kind of consensus developing that Jews are everything that's wrong with the world, despite the fact there are hardly any left in Europe. And this dehumanization has become so complete that instead of expecting marches of solidarity and hashtags from the anti-racists, we just get justifications and conspiracy fantasies about false flags.
Yeah.
And this even stretches to the leader of the Green Party, who previously dismissed attacks on the Jewish community as a perception of unsafety. Meanwhile, his candidates are talking about eliminating vermin. So, you know, how do you square that one?
Well, Alex, you just touched on it there, I think, in that very thorough response there. But, you know, we're living in a not even a world, in a country where last year, probably a bit of the year before now, you know, on a weekly basis, we had these marches taking place, which I would just simply call anti-Jew or anti-Israeli marches, because that's what they were. I can't think of any other area of life where you'd be allowed to walk around in public with placards that said that kind of thing, with loudspeakers that said that kind of thing, and get a free pass. I mean, I find that, you know, I'm all for protest, and I was saying a little earlier, Alex, I quite like protest that I disagree with, because it reminds me that I live in a democracy. But this isn't about disagreement. I mean, this is about hatred. It's about racism, and it was happening on a week-to-week basis in the capital city.
Yeah, and the attacks against synagogue goers and the desperation to march near or on synagogues
on the very evening
during worship times shows you what this was all about.
Yeah.
You know, there was the time where restrictions were created and the march leaders deliberately breached those restrictions which were in place to protect worshippers. And freedom of worship is a pillar of our democracy.
Of course.
Our world is getting smaller and smaller. You know, we're told that we kind of have to be careful on the way to synagogue. We have to be careful on the school run. Our kids are put behind kind of airport type security. We can't go to the town centres at the weekend. If you're a comedian, you can't perform in comedy clubs. If you're a musician, you'll get cancelled. So the reason that we got here is that instead of challenging hate, the mob was kind of alleviated, was catered to in case they were triggered. Fear controlled what was happening. You know, someone was sending me swastikas and the police told me it wasn't grossly offensive.
Nice.
Meanwhile, the temperature for Jews is rising, because if a swastika to a Jew isn't offensive, then nothing is. So it's kind of compromising all our values as well in the process. And of course, we're so grateful for the security, but it doesn't actually address a single thing. And these consecutive governments have failed to protect us from these hate marches. And now we're in this position where Jews are something like 8 times more likely to experience hate crime than a Muslim, but half as likely to see a prosecution. So what we're seeing is this massive institutional failure, because the police, well, what's the point of them arresting when the CPS either won't pick up the case or will botch the case? All this whole thing just leads to racists feeling really empowered.
Indeed. When it comes to, this particular attack this morning, 2 Jewish men, we understand, in stable conditions, one 71 in their 30s. This was clearly a random attack, and it looks as if, and we can say it at this stage because, you know, we're not aware of charges or the like, but it looks as if this person would have gone on the rampage and done more damage. We understand he was put to the ground after trying to attack police officers as well, who were arresting him. So counter-terrorism police are now investigating. The obvious answer is this is an act of terrorism, of course, but getting the word terrorism into criminal proceedings is very tricky, and it shouldn't be, because, you know, if it looks like it, sounds like it, and all the rest of it, it is. So in many respects, we should say this is an act of terrorism and should go down in the books as an act of terrorism, but it may well be lone wolf territory, and the terror aspect gets kind of moved to one side. How do you define what happened, Alex?
Well, technically what it is slightly irrelevant to me, because the fact is that the Jewish community are being terrorized, regardless of whether it's by an official organization or an individual. And behind that individual is an entire ideology that has been incited by celebs, academics, journalists, and musicians. Where the hell are they now? They're nowhere. Because all of that, all of what has happened, all of the silence and the words that help to dehumanize Jews and incite hate against us leads to these so-called lone wolf attacks, which aren't that at all.
Alex, thank you. You bang on that last point as well. Alex Hearn is Director of Labour Against Anti-Semitism with us on the programme. There will be updates. I'm expecting probably in the next couple of hours there will be a police statement specifically about what has happened in Golders Green, and we'll get the details on that. 0344 499 1000. Just very briefly, on a lighter note, we have been talking about stuff that just drives you nuts in terms of kind of irrational behaviour displayed by your fellow humans. This comes on the back of a serious story about councils employing more people to nick folk for swearing. There's a lot of other things you should nick people for. This comes from Ben, who says, Ben in Hampshire says, golf umbrellas on the school run. Get the firing squad. It's a very good point. And Graham in Bushy, people who know they want to turn right at the lights but don't indicate until they get to the front of the lights. Their car should be crushed. You get a lot of that behind somebody going off a slip road. It was on an A road. They were coming off, and I thought, they're slowing down. Are they coming off? Their indicator went on as they were coming off. And, of course, the whole point of the indicator is to warn you that they're coming. It would serve no purpose once they were halfway off. That's the kind of thing. Thank you to Ben. Thank you to Graham. 0344 499 1000. 3:15. This is Talk.
Sent us a picture that made me feel so ashamed. We look like hoarders.
Chris Marshall!
Yeah, I'm actually recovering from an accident right now.
You've landed loose today, haven't you?
Yeah, don't shake the arm, Chris, too much.
You're with Danny Boyle, who's like the maddest director ever. He's got so much energy. He's like you.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is Talk. 0344 499 1000. Just on a lighter note, again, this comes from Neil. We were talking... Things that annoy you on public transport was also on that same hit list. This is usually, once upon a time, this was firm territory for late-night radio phone-ins. It's just random acts of irrational annoyance, that kind of stuff. It's come up organically today, so we didn't sort of pencil this in as, oh, let's do that feature. But it's naturally come up, and somebody contacted us earlier and said they saw somebody cutting their toenails on a train. And now, I don't know. It started off with people doing their makeup on a train, then morphed into other things people do on a train. Dog on the seat, feet on the seat, eating smelly food on a train, all of that. And Neil says, not unreasonably, if I got hit by a toenail on a packed morning train in Brent, I would have been fined more than £1,000. Yeah, I think a lot of people share that. Matt says, anyone not saying thank you when you open the door for them, that is punishable, should be punishable by forcing them to listen to two-tier care for a day or death. Not sure which one I would choose, says Matt. Yeah, it'd be a tough... Oh, what do we got? Two-tier care for a whole day or the end of my days? I don't know. It's kind of... You sort of want to give somebody the benefit of the doubt sometimes and go, well, everyone can have... It's like when somebody doesn't acknowledge you when you're in the car and you give way to them and they just drive straight past you. Yeah, it's true. You could have had a bad day. There could have been a death in the family. You could be going to a medical appointment. I get all of that. But I also sense a lot of it is just rudeness. Here's a question on that point of acknowledging a driver. So you're the person doing the giving way, OK? So there's a car coming up. You flash your lights to allow them to come through. They wave at you. Thank you. Do you wave back? Yes, every time, as natural as breathing, I wave back. I think it's really hard not to wave. If somebody just waved at you and gone, thank you. Like if you were with them, you go, you're welcome, big smile. Always wave back. The ones that don't wave back often look really quite miserable. As if, yeah, they've given way to you, but they didn't really want to. Gotta wave, always give the back wave. Chris is in Bournemouth. Let's go back to more serious matters. Golders Green and what's happened there this morning. Chris, what have you got for us? Good afternoon.
All right, Ian. All my condolences go out to the two people that were stabbed in Golders Green this morning. Mm-hmm. My thoughts are Keir Starmer needs to get his thumb out his backside and realise that this country is now at war on its own turf. All right. Which means put the army out with the police. Yes, it is a Jewish community, but they are in our country, and this is our problem. Mm. And we need to put the army out there with the police to get this sorted out.
Why have we... I mean, look, one would, I suppose, instinctively say... the war, the Middle East, Israel's position in that, put Gaza into the mix. I'm not just talking about Iran. Maybe more so Gaza than Iran in many respects. You look at all of that, that's the reason behind it. But here we are, many, many miles away from those places, in the United Kingdom, where we've had mostly good integrated relationships with all communities, Frank. I mean, if you look at the capital city, I know you're in Bournemouth, Chris, but it would be no surprise to anyone that there's people of all shapes, forms, colours, ethnicities, and backgrounds in any capital city, whether you're in New York, Paris, or Washington, Paris, or London, and that's all suddenly gone wrong. I mean, is this just about Israel? Is it something more? Has Israel become almost a sad and dark excuse for anti-Semites to suddenly spawn their anger and their desires onto unsuspecting Jews?
I think what it all boils down to, Ian, is when Israel started bombing Gaza. And it's just escalated from there.
Yep.
Now, Iran's got involved, and now Iran is sending, although they're coming across here as illegal migrants, they are part of the Iranian society.
Yeah.
And I think you'll find that a lot of these people that are coming over from Iran are on orders from the Ayatollah, wherever he is, legless or not. He is giving orders out to say, in those countries, you must take action. And this is where it's all stemming from.
Yeah.
And we need to put our army on the streets.
But don't we also want a Prime Minister that's going to be beyond angry at this?
Ian, that man couldn't get angry if his life depended on it.
That is true. I mean, being animated, it seems about anything. It's just not in. I mean, this is a malaise that is suffered by many politicians in the current age. That we have sort of professional politicians. They don't do instinctive anger. They don't talk off the cuff. They don't say what they really feel. That fire in the pit of their belly that gets them out of bed in the morning. You don't hear any of this stuff. And Starmer isn't alone in that, but he is the one that happens to be our Prime Minister today. The nearest he got to anger was talking about right-wing people getting annoyed in the streets. Listen, Chris, I'm going to have to move, but thank you for that. You raise a great point. Get the army out there as well. This has just come in from the Assistant Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police, Lawrence Taylor, who says the attack in Golders Green this morning is being treated as a terrorist incident. So this is Head of Counter-Terrorism Policing, Assistant Commissioner Taylor. It is being treated as a terrorist incident. Now, as those kind of cases make their way through the system, you get to the CPS and places like that. The test for terrorism is, look, because you can argue any act of barbarity is an act of terror, right? But terrorism, in the sense of ideologically driven from a belief system that supports a specific cause and will do anything in order to advance that cause and their perceived injustice and all the rest of it. That's usually the test, one or all of those things. And if it doesn't meet that, you find that it is sort of, I wouldn't say downgraded, it would still be attempted murder in a case such as this, one would assume. But nonetheless, let's hope they can. If this is clearly what the police have managed to establish pretty early on, that it's certainly being treated as a terrorist incident. 0344 499 1000. Somebody here says, Ian, why is your hairdresser giving you a Starmer haircut? No. Keir Starmer has an Ian Collins haircut. See, this never happened when we hadn't heard of Keir Starmer. Even when he was in opposition, it never happened. But he is rocking around the place with a Collins cut. Not snipped at the same place, but I think what he's doing is emulating, isn't he? Why would he not be? 0344 499 1000. Paul is in Newport. Back to where we started, Paul. What's the UK going to look like in the next decade? What are your thoughts? Hi.
Good afternoon to you, my friend. Good afternoon. I actually think we're going to follow a path that, believe it or not, Wales has been following for years. They're struggling to keep their own language. They've made all sorts of rules that people from outside of Wales can't buy houses, so the locals can buy houses. I honestly think that the way it's going is that we're going to find ourselves almost with little communities of like old England. Yeah. I think that's just the way it is. I think part of the problem
it might well be that. Yeah.
Well, most people I know, I'm sure, if all of a sudden, Ian, you found yourself with like a squillion bucks, okay, I've no doubt the first thing you do is you look for a house that's probably, doesn't have to be too big, but it's in like 30 acres of land or 300 acres of land, because you just want to get away from society. That's how we're becoming. We're becoming very sort of insular. That like the poor people in London. So those two poor guys have been stabbed, okay. And we all feel sorry for them. And most normal people are like, man, this shouldn't be happening. This just should not be happening. But don't forget, there's always a secondary effect where people around who aren't Jewish are just saying, why do I want to live in a place where anyone gets stabbed? Yeah. It's like the thing with the shop robbers, who would now, of course, if you're going to rob a shop, make sure you don't swear, because the swear police will get you. The shop robbing police won't, but the share police will. Yeah. So robbers must not swear. But anyway, so people, you said the other day you walked in there and or whatever it was, or you witnessed something, and someone stuffs a bag and just pegs it out.
Yep.
Who wants to live in that? Yeah. You could not pay me to live in London. I'm not joking you. You could not pay me to live in London. I live in a very sort of rural part of the world, and even we're having our problems. We're having our problems because they keep, the other week, a few months ago, they moved 200 migrants into like a little biddy hotel, kicked everyone out and said, and the rest of us are like, holy moly, what's going on here?
It's quite bizarre, isn't it? At what point did it become controversial or offensive to have a very strong opinion about that?
It sort of crept up on us, didn't it? Because funny enough, we were chatting. Me and my friends were chatting the other day,
Yeah.
And I'm early 60s, okay. And when I was a kiddie at school, we had one. I don't know the phrase. They're black now, aren't they? We had one black lad. He was the most popular guy in school. He really was. It was kind of like, well, we've got a black lad, and everyone wanted to be his buddy.
Mm-hmm.
These days, it seems to be, for whatever reason, that the psyche has moved away from anything that was like, well, he's just another bloke, or just another girl. It seems to have moved away. If they don't think as we think or don't look as we look, we're automatic. Not all of us, because most of us, no, actually not most of us, but too few of us are sensible enough to say he's just an ordinary bloke. I honestly believe, honestly believe, most people I know, in fact, all the people I know, they just we don't give a hoot about colour, creed, religion. You could be pink with blue spots as long as you're a nice person.
I think that generally represents most people, right? I mean, I think most 100%. Of us rub along like that. I mean, my life is way too busy to be worrying about what colour somebody's skin happens to be.
100%.
But I do worry if they're a nice person.
But if you see some guy who sort of, I don't give a hoot. If a bloke dressed as a woman helps a granny across the street, good on you, my friend. I really don't care. The problem is that we sort of seem to be in a world where the slightest, we live in a tinderbox, really, don't we?
Yeah.
The slightest
100%.
thing, and it kicks off. And all of a sudden it's like, wow, it's kicked off over there. What did that kick off of that? Don't know, but they're burning this, burning that,
We also, we live in a world where the anger is kind of, oddly, Tony Blair talked about this once in a really interesting way about the kind of changing face of the world we live in. So there's an issue in one part of the world, and then there's a protest in, in Newport. And you think, well, how did that happen? Well, where did we get to a stage where people in Newport are protesting against something that happened in Russia? But that's the world we live in now. It's a very small planet. People get angry. I think they gravitate towards either things that personally interest them or disturb them, or they join in, with sort of synthetic anger, because there's a lot of that going on. But that we are in. I don't think we've really caught up ourselves. The human brain hasn't kind of managed to catch up with where we're actually at.
Remember I said, I've spoken to you quite a few times now, and we were on about a couple of months ago. We were on about, and it was a migration thing. And there's this institution called the Migration Watch. And they're just looking all over the world to see who's moving and where. And the number had come out that 90 million people are on the move from Africa to Europe. And we were saying, wow, if only 10% of that comes our way, that's 9 million people.
Yeah.
Well, no one can tell me that an influx of 9 million people won't have an effect on the people that are already here.
Correct.
It's impossible to say that.
Yep.
Absolutely impossible to say that. So getting back to the Wales thing, I honestly think we're going to end up with little villages here or little areas there, or we'll all start saying, okay, then I was in Mevergizzy last year, lovely part of the world, down in Cornwall,
Mm-hmm.
And it's really peaceful and quiet because there's hardly anyone there. And I think we're all going to move. We're all going to move to those places because they represent what life used to be like when we were so much younger. Probably, of course, we all move there and then they become as bad as everywhere else.
The enclave theory is more than interesting. Listen, Paul, I'm going to have to move just for time, no other reason. Really good talking again. Thank you, Paul in Newport. 0344 499 1000. MG says, so countries have rules about shouting and swearing in public. So if councils do nothing, then how will these jobs cope on holiday abroad? It's a fair point. You do get people who get collared by local cultural laws rather than overt criminality. I mean, piddling in the street, I think, gets you a fine. It doesn't always happen, probably rarely happens, but it can technically get you a fine in most Western countries, I'd imagine. But beyond that, swearing in the street, I mean, if you did that in Singapore or, China or somewhere, started going nuts, drunk out your face, you'd be in cuffs and in a cell very, very quickly, and God knows when you get out of there. 03444 03444 0344 499 1000. That's where you'll find us. Just gone 3:30. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is Talk, 25 to 4. Back to your calls, and there's so many. Oh, we didn't do the Voice of Doom, did we? The Voice of Doom, but did we get a winner on the Voice of Doom? I'll let you know some details in a couple of moments. Alan's in Doncaster. Back to the population question. Alan, what have you got for us? Hi. Can you hear us, Alan?
Thanks for taking my call.
That's all right.
Ian, I'm 70. Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear now. Go on, fire away.
It begs belief that... I'm talking to the House of Common Sense, the station of common sense. I want to know why there's no common sense coming out of Westminster, but more importantly and more directly, all this mass immigration and the likes of Birmingham today and what it'll be like tomorrow, all we're doing is creating our own little Gaza strips all across England.
Do you bearing in mind the figures that we're looking at, yes, got all that. The figures say to us that the increase in migration in this country will be 2.2 million within 8 years. So it's very, that's not that far away, of course, in relative terms. So 2.2 million in 8 years. Now, it leaves us in a really interesting situation because the argument seems to go, Alan, that if without immigration we're stuffed because we haven't got enough people having babies in this country. What's your take on that?
My take on that is all the babies that are being given put into Britain from other groups that do produce lots of babies, they're not going to be wanting to join the British Army, are they, or work for the country? It's not. It's definitely not going to happen. It'll be the exact opposite, and we're just stoking our own fire, and I don't know how we're going to put it out.
It's a fair point. Listen, Alan, thank you for your call. We had a slight problem with the line. I was in massive delay to you, but we got there in the end. Alan, thank you. Alan in Doncaster. Ben is in Essex on this one. Ben, what have you got for us?
Hi, Ian. Yeah, I sadly think we're not going to have a country, and I think it'll be within less than 10 years. I mean, it's the problem is we're lacking so much national pride, and when you've got that many people coming across from other, walks of life and cultures, and you know, how the hell can we uphold what we are, which is a Christian democratic nation? You know, and we have if we're not upholding those values and those strengths and boundaries as to who we are, we've got no identity.
Correct.
And I think I did like the speech the King did yesterday, and it was in a way it was good, but in a way it was quite sad, because I think he was talking really well about our country, as was Trump, but we're not upholding that. And when the numbers just don't add up. When you've got millions of people from other nations, you know, that are completely different to who we are, just coming in, they're not going to come in and think, oh, we're going to uphold the values of this country. They're going to take over. It's just natural order. And unfortunately, I think there are plenty of people there, but we're not doing much about it, which is sad to see. It really is sad to see. And I just hope that we can turn it around, because if we don't, we will lose our nation. And I think sadly we're more there than not being there. Which is... Yeah,
it's kind of weird, because I said right at the beginning when we started the show, Ben, you know, that we were... Look, I know things change, and we all get that, and, you know, we live in different times, technology, a digital world, AI, and all the rest of it. But when you look at, you know, what once was of a country such as ours, where we spent centuries exporting people, language, laws, institutions, all manner of cultural considerations. We weren't, I said at the beginning, we weren't the only ones doing that, you know, but we were either Man City, Villa or Arsenal, you know, we were up there. And there's no doubt about that. And now we found ourselves in the 21st century where we seem sort of exhausted and indebted. And we're sort of doing nothing now. There's a sort of nothingness there, and there's not any great... We've almost ducked out of life as a people.
Yeah, it's funny you said about like football teams. It's almost like you're a football team like what Manchester United once were, where they're so used to being good and great and winning that you forget about it. And then all of a sudden, everybody else is doing something, and then you think, oh, actually, we've got to do something now. I think that's what's happened to this country. We've become too complacent of being, you know, one of the best, freest nations in the world, and you become complacent. And what's happened, we've had a slow erosion of our culture, who we are as a nation, lack of national pride. And you know, and then generations go and die, and then new generations come up. That lack of pride doesn't get echoed, and then all of a sudden you're stuck in the middle of the road thinking, we don't even know who we are.
Yeah, and it shouldn't need an apology, should it? If you want to say, look, I think, you know, culturally we should be looking after ourselves, we should be having a cohesive culture, black, white, brown, couldn't care what colour you are. That stuff's not relevant to this. It's about having, you know, a sort of common hymn sheet, as the phrase goes. And I know it sounds all rather obvious stuff, but it is sort of that is missing.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, the thing is, there is this notion that, you know, if you talk about national pride and the fact that we're a democratic Christian nation and we want to have strong borders, is that you're a racist, you're a bigot. And that is the problem. There's nothing racist about wanting to be proud of being a Christian nation and wanting strong borders and being tough on crime and having a strong military. You know, I think this gets slandered by left-wing people calling people far right, and that's the problem. And the problem, when you've got a lack of national pride and identity and boundary of who you are, that can easily get washed away. I think, oh, actually, I won't stand up for this because I'm worried about Susie down the road with pink hair that said that I'm far right.
Yeah, it's all been morphed in, hasn't it? And then, you know, I don't know how you get it back to that, because you can look at the far right, the genuine far right, and say, well, they haven't actually done us any favours, frankly, because they've genuinely created a problem. The far left have obviously created a massive problem. And there's most of us sort of somewhere in the middle where you go, hang on, it's not right-wing to want to be proud of the country and to sing from the rafters all the stuff we're good at and, you know, say, you know, actually, this is you know, we're not going to allow you in the streets worshipping a medieval death cult in the Middle East. That's not going to happen. I want to hear a Prime Minister say that. I wouldn't think that would make Keir Starmer far right if he said that.
No, I don't know. I think it is doable that we can get back to, a nation that's proud, but the thing is, I liked what the King said yesterday, and I'll be honest, I've not been the biggest fan of our King, but I liked what he said yesterday, and it did make me feel a little bit of, I like what he's saying, and felt a little bit of pride there. But unfortunately, it's not being echoed through, and we should be getting that from our leadership in that house of, Keir Starmer, but unfortunately, we're not getting that.
Yeah.
And it's undermining who we are as a nation. And I don't know what it's going to take, whether the public are going to revolt, but it has to change, otherwise we will lose our nation, sadly.
Yeah, I'm with you, Ben. Thank you. Ben in Essex, thank you to him. This story came around for those who've just sort of joined in. In fact, there were two stories, but they connect and dovetail absolutely perfectly. One is that our population is at a turning point because deaths will outnumber births for the first time this year. So the amount of people dying will outnumber the amount of people being born. So you get into the reasons why people aren't having babies and why they're not procreating. What interesting, why the number's gone down so dramatically. So we're not literally not creating enough people. Now, that's not just an anecdote for the pub. Guess what, Mick? We ain't having babies anymore. That's funny, isn't it? Because actually there's nothing funny about this, because the undercurrent to that headline is that we end up with a dangerous economic vacuum in terms of industry, who does the jobs, who works. How do we manage to continue to grow if we don't have enough people to work? We already have many problems. So you have that. As we're reading this headline, another headline comes running around the corner that tells us that in the next 8 years, our population will increase by 2.2 million in the next 8 years. Now, if all of that 2.2 million were like the cavalry coming over the hills with bugles and horses going, "Don't worry, boys, we're here to rescue you." A bit of a birth dirge, so we'll sort this out. We're here to man the forts and take up the jobs and the cudgels of industry. If that were the case, you'd go, "Oh, thank goodness for that. Some really nice people have come." I don't think anybody is sold on the idea that what we are getting in that respect is going to do this. Plus, you have the other reality in all of this, which is, again, sort of a whole separate subject in itself, but perfectly completes the jigsaw puzzle of what is happening and what is likely to happen. And that is the world of artificial intelligence is going to forevermore change the fabric of the workplace, change the availability of jobs, and employment rates are likely to look very different in the next 5 years. I was talking to a guy that works in a senior IT position just a couple of days ago, and he was saying that he is now looking for the AI-proof job, because he is, not only is his company, and it's a big company that he works for, is using quite a lot of AI stuff already, and this is just week one of AI. He said his own job, it's quite a senior position, his own job simply won't be there. He's 100% convinced it just won't be there. 2 years ago, it would have been unthinkable. 2 years' time, it's going to be doable. So often when people make projections about the kind of changing face of what technology is going to do, these are things that happened or will happen in years and years to come. This is round the corner. So factor that into multiple areas of how work exists and how people are employed or not employed, and you've got another disaster on your hands, because there won't be any jobs, which cancels out one of the other 2 points, that we need people to do all the work. Well, what work? What work will it be? 0344 499 1000. More from you. Oh, let's quickly do the voice of doom, by the way. Did we get a winner? Around about an hour ago, it's the mystery voice. It's a brand new one. It's day one. This was the voice we played you.
We'll give hope.
Well, that was quick, wasn't it? Can we hear that again?
We'll give hope.
It's quite brutal. Who is that? It could be left wing, right wing, dead, alive. young, old, male, female. These are some of the guesses: Sarah Pochin, Edwina Curry, Rosie Duffield, Jeffrey Cox, Maggie Oliver, Yvette Cooper, Victoria Atkins, Kim Reynolds. No, none of those, but we didn't get a winner. It rolls over to... I'm not here tomorrow. Mark Dolan's here tomorrow. Rolls over to Friday. We're also just hearing as well that the Metropolitan Police Commissioner, Sir Mark Rowley, will soon make a statement at the scene of Golders Green, where 2 men were stabbed earlier today. The head of the Met, Mark Rowley, will be making a statement soon from Golders Green. You'll hear it here live on Talk. Don't be going anywhere. We're back after this.
Sent us a picture that made me feel so ashamed. We look like hoarders.
Chris Marshall!
Yeah, I'm actually recovering from an accident right now.
You've landed loose today, haven't you?
Yeah, don't shake the arm, Chris, too much.
You're with Danny Boyle, who's like the maddest director ever. He's got so much energy. He's like you.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
We are expecting to hear from Sir Mark Rowley, the head of the Met from Golders Green. He's made his way to that area. We're going to hear some comments from him, which will be, Form 1 assumes, a full update as well. Let's go to Ian down in London. Ian, what have you got for us? Good afternoon.
Is that the afternoon bloke?
It's the afternoon bloke in the afternoon. That's the one, yeah. With a Keir Starmer haircut, apparently.
Oh, I would never say that. That's like being what they're saying. You should be like, they should be arrested for.
I don't even know how that happened, by the way, because Keir Starmer's been around forever, but it was only like in the last sort of, well, mate, since he became Prime Minister, people say, well, Keir Starmer, and you've got glasses as well. Well, he never used to have glasses or this haircut, so he's clearly been watching us, Ian.
I know, he's most probably thinking, well, Lord Ali gives the glasses to Ian Collins, so I'll have a pair as well.
That's what it was, you see. He just said to Lord Ali, make me look like Collins. That's what happened. Please, Ali, please.
Make me look, but the trouble is, he's not as sensible as you.
No, absolutely
not. That's the one thing you can't knock into his head.
Indeed. And he's an Arsenal fan, but that's another story.
Oh, have you noticed who are Arsenal fans?
Yes.
Corbyn,
Yeah, I know a few of them.
Yeah, it's a very...
Oh, is Sadiq Khan an Arsenal fan as well? I didn't know that. I didn't even know he was into football. I know Keir Starmer is genuinely into football, but didn't know about Khan. But there you go. Anyway, what have you got for us here?
Burko, sorry.
John Burko?
Yeah.
Wow.
Another, yeah, too scary. Right. Going back to this whole thing, as we said before, and I think you mentioned it, and I think your guest that was on earlier on, Alex, said, why is it they're doing all this to the councils, but they never, ever interrupted all these pro-Pally, anti-Semitic shouting, screaming abuse all the time?
Yeah. Never
said a word. Now they want to bring it out, but for different things. What about when they drove down the streets with...
Listen, stay there, don't go away. We are just going to cross now and get the latest from Sir Mark Rowley, who's in Golders Green.
Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police, and I speak here from the scene of a terrorist attack in northwest London. Our counter-terrorism policing teams have already formally declared this incident as a terrorist attack. It's another horrendous act of violence directed against our Jewish communities, which follows a series of arson attacks in recent weeks. It will rightly shock and anger people across London and in the immediate communities and across the country. My first thoughts are with the two British Jews who were attacked whilst going about their daily lives, which they should be able to do freely and safely in their own local community. I also want to pay tribute to my officers who were on the scene within a few minutes and whose actions undoubtedly prevented further injury and saved lives. Indeed, before coming here today, I met with them. They are nothing short of extraordinary. They confronted a man they believed to be a terrorist, who refused to show his hands, who was violent, and who continued to pose a clear threat. These were not armed officers, and they feared that he was carrying an explosive device. Using only their training, their courage and their tasers, they managed to detain him whilst they continued to try and attack and stab them. They will tell you they were simply doing their jobs, but without their bravery, I dread to think what the outcome would have been. I also want to recognise the extraordinary voluntary first responders from the community, including the Shomrim. And so it was at about 11:16 this morning they responded to reports of people being stabbed in Highfield Road in northwest London. They attended along with the local ambulance service. Two men, one in his 70s and one in their 30s, were treated at the scene for stab wounds, and they are now taken to hospital. The 45-year-old man has been arrested on suspicion of attempted murder and remains in custody following a check-up at the local hospital. He has a history of serious violence and mental health issues, and that investigation continues. Let me say a few words about what this was. Let me be clear. This is an attack on one community. An attack on one community is an attack on all London's communities. This was an attack on Londoners. It is an attack on British Jews. Too many Jewish people in this country feel they have to make choices that no other Briton ever has to make. They have to make choices about how they dress, where they go, or how visibly they live their lives. That's completely unacceptable and has gone on for far too long. We also need to be honest about the nature of the threat. Anti-Semitism is fuelled by hateful and extremist ideologies. It comes from hostile states, the extreme right and the extreme left. These are terrorist and hateful belief systems, but they're all rooted in racism. They're given space to operate when civic debate is weak, when hatred is excused, and when people are unwilling to challenge it directly. I also believe now is the time to ask some difficult questions. Why don't we see more condemnation of the attacks we've seen in recent weeks? Where are all the voices against hate? And where is the solidarity with fellow Londoners who are being targeted simply for who they are? Legitimate debate about international affairs should never be allowed to legitimise anti-Semitism or violence against British Jews here on the streets of London. When that line is blurred, attacks become more likely. Let me be clear, we've seen a rise in racist and anti-Semitic hate crime, and whilst I can't comment on live investigations, we know that some individuals are being encouraged, persuaded or paid to commit acts of violence
on behalf of foreign organisations and hostile states. If you act out of hatred, racism or anti-Semitism, we will come after you and you will face the consequences. I want to speak directly about the impact on communities. In response, over recent weeks, we've stepped up our activity across the capital. Last week saw the most intensive set of community protection operations we've ever run. In recent weeks, we've deployed thousands of additional officer shifts to protect Londoners, alongside intensified investigations that already led to the arrest of 28 people for hate crimes, particularly those targeting the Jewish community, several of which have already been charged. My teams are, of course, planning such a heightened protective stance addressing this to run into the long term. And let me finish by saying this. London is an inclusive and diverse city, and the hours, the days that followed the attacks in Golders Green 3 weeks ago, we saw communities come together in solidarity to reject hatred and violence. These are neighbours, their friends, their colleagues. Their solidarity matters